Chapter 398. After a long time, no one from either side accepted the challenge. Yen Bugui looked at the people on his left and right. Seeing their hesitant eyes, he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Before this, they were all determined to raise 1 billion, ready to embarrass the wuxia cultivation world and make a fortune. Now, a nascent soul stage xianxia had scared them so much that no one dared to go up. Yen Bugui's guess was right. Except for the 2 experts at the final stage of tribulation passing, the other dozens of people were indeed quite afraid of xianxia. They wanted to go down and accept the challenge, but they were afraid that the guy with 1,000 flying swords would jump out again. Everyone's cultivation was about the same as Yen Cheng and his brothers, so they couldn't be much higher. They really couldn't guarantee that they could win against xianxia. No one was willing to risk their lives to try. They could only wait for someone else to come up and then challenge him. On the side of the Cultivation Alliance, seeing that the 3 whip experts had all been killed, and the threat of the strange whip was gone, they were a little tempted. However, they were also worried that these foreign cultivators would use some strange treasures again, so they were a little hesitant. Xianxia looked around and sneered. They wanted to show off, but they were afraid of paying the price. Every one of them was calculating, and none of them were good. After cursing in his heart, he looked at Zi. Zi was excited and asked, "Do you want me to go up?" Just as xianxia was about to nod his head to signal her to make a move, they heard the sound of something flying through the air in the distance. Everyone raised their heads and looked over. A black shadow arrived in the blink of an eye, landing directly in front of the people from the myriad demons' palace. A lean and skinny old man in black slowly turned around with his hands behind his back. His snow-white hair flowed freely behind his back as he stared at the mountaintop where Yen Bugui was at with a glint in his eyes. Before he spoke, the aura of a superior made all the people of the 10,000 demons stand with their hands tied, and they lowered their heads slightly without saying a word. Hiss. Baishan took a deep breath and said, "Why is he here? Who is this person?" Xianxia asked, puzzled. To be able to make the 10,000 demons look like this, the person who came must have a high status among the 10,000 demons. Xuanhuan. He's the previous palace master of the 10,000 demons? Why is he here? Before Baishan could reply, many people around him answered Xianxia's question. This person was known as the most ambitious and ruthless person in the Devil Path, the previous palace master of the 10,000 demons, Xuanhuan. Now that he had come, it was unknown why he had come, but it was most likely related to his son, Yen Bugui. When Xianxia heard this, he immediately sized him up carefully. Such a famous figure was the #1 gangster in the cultivation world. Worthy of reverence. Xuanhuan had been famous in the cultivation world for a long time. He had retired many years ago, so most people had never seen him before. Now that he had suddenly appeared, he immediately became the center of attention. Humph! Unfilial son. Xuanhuan let out a cold snort. His voice was not loud, but it echoed in the valley, showing his cultivation level. Yen Bugui looked over and was already a little dumbfounded. The cultivators from the other countries also frowned. Xianxia looked at both sides and his heart was filled with joy. There was going to be a good show to watch. Wuhan. Xuanhuan called out coldly. Qiu Wuyuan immediately went over and bowed respectfully. "Master. What's the situation now?" Xuanhuan asked. Qiu Wuyuan immediately recounted the entire process of the challenge, pointing at Xianxia as he spoke. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, everyone saw Xuanhuan backhand slap Qiu Wuyuan's face. After being slapped, Qiu Wuyuan lowered his head and didn't say anything. Instead, he became even more respectful. Xuanhuan turned his head and stared coldly at Xianxia. Xianxia hated people who took advantage of their seniority. He turned his head to the side, too lazy to pay attention to them. He didn't care who they were. That slap shocked everyone. Xuanhuan really didn't give any face to Qiu Wuyuan. He slapped Qiu Wuyuan in front of so many people. Everyone was stunned when they suddenly realized that Yen Bugui had disappeared. They looked around and found that he was already in the valley. What was he going to do? Late-stage tribulation cultivator, Xuanhuan is here to accept the challenge. The voice spread loudly in the valley, answering everyone's doubts. The various sects of the Cultivation Alliance looked at each other. They didn't expect that someone like Xuanhuan, who was rarely seen, would come all the way here just to ruin his own son's reputation. Yen Bugui and the others were livid, especially Yen Bugui, who looked like he had lost his soul. All the cultivators from the various countries stared at the 2 old men beside Yen Bugui. One was dressed in brocade robes, the other in linen robes. Only their cultivation was qualified to fight against him. But the 2 of them looked at Yen Bugui with an unreadable expression. Yan Wuchen stood indifferently in the valley with his hands behind his back, quietly waiting for his opponent to challenge him. However, as time passed, no one from his opponent came out. Yu Qianzhou observed the movements of Yan Bugui and the others, and the corner of his mouth curled up. Interesting. If this continued, Yan Bugui's side would automatically admit defeat after 2 hours. It seemed that they could consider splitting the money. Just as the 2 hours were about to end, the old man in linen robes stepped out with a sullen face. Yan Bugui immediately stretched out his arm to stop him and shook his head bitterly. Senior Feng, no. That's my father. Yan Wuchen glanced over slightly. The old man in linen robes said in a low voice, Palace Lord Yan, you must be joking. You have to understand that if we don't accept the challenge we will lose 1 billion. This is not a small amount. We can't lose 1 billion just because it's your father. Who has the face to be worth 1 billion? Senior Chang, do you have any good ideas? Yan Bugui turned and asked the old man in brocade robes for advice. Who doesn't have parents? Palace Lord Yan, we all understand your difficulties. The old man in brocade robes paused and continued, but it's unreasonable to let everyone lose 1 billion just because of your father. This billion is almost all the money we have in our pockets. To us it's not a small amount. Even if I agree, no one else will. Unless Palace Lord Yan has another way to compensate us for our losses, there's nothing I can do. Yan Bugui's heart was filled with anger. The challenge was caused by you guys. Now, other than the 2 of you who are in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage, the rest of the tribulation passing stage have been intimidated by Yu Qianzhou. Even if the 2 of you fight, who can guarantee that you'll be a match for my father? Now you're asking me to compensate for your losses? If I can really unify the cultivation world of China, then I can let you pick any 2 spirit stone mines and mine them indefinitely. Right now, I can only make an empty promise. If you don't think it's appropriate, then please do as you please. Yan Bugui said in a low voice. He had no choice but to make this promise. If it was someone else, he wouldn't care. After all, he didn't have to pay a single spirit stone. However, it was his own father. No matter how bad he was, he didn't dare to be accused of disobeying his own father. The group of people exchanged glances, expressing their agreement by not speaking. One had to know that a top-grade spirit stone mine could earn tens of millions of upper-grade spirit stones in a year. It would only take 100 years to recoup the cost. To cultivators, 100 years was not too long. But 2 top-grade spirit stone mines would only take 50 years, not to mention that they could mine it indefinitely. It should be a huge profit. The only risk was that even if everyone worked together, they might not be able to help Yan Bugui unify the cultivation world of China. Then there would be nothing left. But it shouldn't be a big problem. The old man in linen clothes relaxed. The old man in brocade clothes looked at the crowd and smiled at Yan Bugui. Since Palace Lord Yan has put it this way, we naturally can't do anything to make you and your father turn against each other. So, we'll do as Palace Lord Yan says. We shouldn't stay here for long. Let's go. The group of people suddenly left in a hurry. The people of the Cultivation Alliance were all stunned. Then they all looked at Yan Wuchen, who was in the valley. Needless to say, it was because of his father that Yan Bugui could give up 1 billion spirit stones and retreat without a fight. 1 billion spirit stones. He threw it away just like that. What a deep bond between father and son. Yan Wuchen raised his head slightly and looked in the direction of Yan Bugui's departure. He did not move for a long time, the opponent withdrew and the challenge ended just like that. It was an unexpected win, and no one felt that there was anything to be happy about. Next, what everyone was most concerned about was the ownership and division of the 1 billion spirit stones. That was a large sum of money. The ones who had the opportunity to divide it were naturally the top 10 sects of the Orthodox and Devil sects, and the 4 great clans. As for the other sects who did not contribute money or effort, and instead watched the show for nothing, they naturally did not have a share. The crowd returned to the 100 Flowers Valley. Yu Qianzhou and Ziyi followed closely behind the 10,000 demons. They had their money in their hands and they were a little worried if they did not follow them closely. Running away with money could happen in any era. In the Cultivation Alliance, the first thing to do was to follow the agreement from the beginning. Everyone would get back how much they had contributed. Yu Qianzhou happily pocketed his 40 million. Then he stood guard at the edge of the myriad demons' palace, waiting for the distribution. He thought to himself, I've won 2 rounds so I should get the biggest share. Ziyi also followed beside him with a face full of excitement, waiting to get the money. The 2 guys who only cared about money were smiling from ear to ear, and they looked quite lovable when they saw them. We agreed before that 1 billion spirit stones will be divided into 20 parts, and each part will be 50 million. Winning one round will get 50 million. Supporting Immortal Island won the first round, so they should get 50 million first. Xianxia won 2 rounds, so he should get 100 million. Senior Yen of the 10,000 demons came out to scare off the opponent, so he naturally won 1 round, so the 10,000 demons should also get 50 million. As for the remaining 800 million, I suggest that we split it according to the proportion of contribution, Zhu Xianxian of the Daluo sect suggested. Not bad, this is considered fair. I agree. The Blood Demon Palace, the Corpse sect, the Moon sect, and some other sects that paid expressed their agreement. Yu Qianzhou silently calculated in his heart, and the smile on his face froze, and his expression suddenly darkened. This doesn't seem right. Qiu Weiyuan looked around at the crowd and said, if it wasn't for my master this time, who knows how long this challenge would have lasted, and who knows what would have happened. It can be said that my master ended the last 17 rounds by himself, so the 10,000 demons should get 17 portions of the money. However, the 10,000 demons will not do something like eating all the money alone. I am willing to give 2 portions to the sects that paid but did not contribute. Chapter 399. Heh, it's true that Senior Yen is an honorable man, but he's only made an appearance once and he hasn't even done anything yet. Isn't this appearance fee a little too high? Zhu Xianxian looked at the crowd and asked with a smile. Zhu Xianxian, don't be so sarcastic. Qiu Weiyuan glared at him and said, everyone is well aware that if it wasn't for my master's arrival, Yen Bugui wouldn't have thrown down 1 billion for us to take advantage of. Your Daluo sect hasn't even done anything, yet you're already able to take advantage of it. Could it be that you think it's too little? At this time, Yen Wuchen had already gone to rest at the 10,000 demons shop in the 100 Flowers Valley. With his status, he naturally wouldn't come here to fight for money with a bunch of people. However, as a disciple, Qiu Weiyuan naturally had to work hard. The more he got, the more he could demonstrate his master's value. In addition, this was also a fight for huge profits, so he couldn't just give up like that. Your 10,000 demons want to take 15 portions each? Aren't you afraid of bursting? Zhu Xianxian retorted. There was a lot of sarcasm in the surrounding. The sects that had contributed were obviously not interested in Qiu Weiyuan's proposal. If he took more, everyone else would naturally get less. Those who contribute the most should get more. This logic works everywhere, Qiu Weiyuan said unhappily. Those who contribute the most should get more. I agree with this. Bai Shan of the 4 great clans stood up and smiled at the crowd. No matter how you calculate, you all agree on 20 portions. Have you all forgotten that the 4 great clans also contributed a portion? Moreover, Yu Qianzhou has represented the 4 great clans in 2 consecutive victories. He has contributed a lot. Why don't you all listen to his opinion? He had seen Yu Qianzhou's sour expression earlier. It was obvious that he didn't agree with the distribution method, or rather, it wasn't what he wanted. Thus he came out to remind everyone. Bai Shan believed that this guy wasn't someone who would easily take a loss, especially when it came to money. Everyone was thinking about their own interests and almost forgot about this great hero. Qiu Weiyuan was taken aback. He looked at Yu Qianzhou and asked, Brother Yu, what do you think? Seeing Yu Qianzhou's dark face, he suddenly had a bad feeling. What the hell am I looking at? Yu Qianzhou threw a tantrum first, then he pointed at the crowd and sneered, when it comes to money, all of you are so desperate that you don't even want to fork out a single spirit stone. You even dragged the 4 major clans into this. When it was time to split the money, each of them was even more shameless, wishing that they could put all the money into their own pockets. Today I finally witnessed the demeanor of a great sect. Everyone's expressions changed. If it was before, there would definitely be a bunch of people scolding him or teaching him a lesson. But now, after seeing his strength, everyone had to restrain themselves. Bai Shan smiled and took a step back. It was up to Yu Qianzhou to decide whether he would win or lose. He just had to stand up for him at the crucial moment. Qiu Weiyuan frowned and said, Brother Yu, there's no need to talk about this nonsense. If you have any opinions, why don't you just say it and let everyone hear it? I'm an honest man, I don't have any opinions. I only know that when it came to money, it was agreed that whoever wins more matches will get more money. Those who don't win will not get a share. Yu Qianzhou's expression turned fierce. He pointed his fingers and said loudly, they fought 3 matches and won 3 matches. I don't care what's going on between Senior Yen and Yen Bugui. Anyway, he's able to scare everyone into not daring to accept his challenge. That's his ability. So, I have no opinion even if Senior Yen wins that match. In other words, there are a total of 4 matches, and the billion will be split into 4 portions. The number of matches won will be split accordingly. There's no need to be so noisy. Of course, if I say this, people will definitely say that I'm greedy. Moreover, everyone has contributed. Fine. I'll take a step back and say that the sects that have contributed will also be counted as a share. The billion will be split into 5 portions. The winners will take 4 portions, and the remaining portion will be split among those who contributed. After the group of people from supporting Immortal Island heard this, they all nodded and didn't say anything. They had the title of the world's #1 sect, and it was really inconvenient for them to compete with others. Therefore they didn't say anything. According to xianxia, if they could get 1/5 of the money, that would be 200 million. It was really not a small amount, and there was no reason for them to disagree. Qiu Weiyuan frowned and pondered. The other sects that contributed were obviously unhappy. According to Zhu Xianxian they could get 800 million, but according to xianxia they could only get 200 million. The difference was too big. xianxia, according to what you said, you want to take nearly half of the money. Aren't you looking down on the sects too much? Wen Zhongping from the Blood Demon Palace said to the crowd with a smile. It seemed like he wanted to use the sects to pressure xianxia. You're old and muddled. xianxia's words were shocking. He sneered and said, how did you say that I'm looking down on the sects? If I had known, I would have hidden in the back and waited to get a share of the money. Why did I have to go out and risk my life? In the future, if the Cultivation Alliance has such a good thing, I will definitely support it. Who doesn't like to get a share of the money without doing any work? I was depressed before. Why didn't the sects accept the challenge? I, a nascent soul cultivator, had to go out and fight with a tribulation cultivator. After such a long time, it turns out that there's such a shady business. I've learned a lot. It's worth learning. Someone dared to steal his money, and it wasn't a small amount. He didn't care if it was the Blood Demon Palace or the 10,000 demons. However, these words of mockery and ridicule really made the various sects somewhat embarrassed. Wen Zhongping was especially embarrassed. He couldn't help but fly into a rage and said, xianxia, how dare you call yourself old man in front of me? Don't you know that there's a difference in etiquette between seniors and elders in this world? Disrespectful old man trying to divide the wealth of juniors. Who has ever seen a senior like this? It's fine if a senior like this is disrespectful. The eyes of the world are like torches and they can tell right from wrong. No one will say that I'm disrespectful, xianxia said disdainfully. He thought to himself, practice your tongue? I'll keep you company. How dare you? Wen Zhongping shouted angrily. The people from the Blood Demon Palace all stood up, looking like they were going to fight. The people from the 4 major clans immediately stood behind xianxia, opposing the people from the 10,000 demons. Qiu Weiyuan and Quan Deming quickly stepped in between the 2 groups, trying to persuade them to talk things out. xianxia laughed coldly and said, you want to fight? I've never been afraid of anyone. Back then the sect leader of Ong Kwangtsung, Lu Changqing, was too much of a bully. I was only at the core formation stage back then, but I still dared to kill him. Now if anyone else wants to try, why don't you think about it? When the time comes, don't blame me for being ruthless and unreasonable. Everyone smiled bitterly when they heard this. Not only did this guy kill the sect leader of Ong Kwangtsung, Lu Changqing, but he also crippled the sect leader of the Luo sect, Luo Qingtian. Calling him a lunatic was not an exaggeration. Wen Zhongping was furious. xianxia, are you threatening the Blood Demon Palace? xianxia glared at him coldly and snorted. I'm threatening you, not the Blood Demon Palace. But if you want to drag the Blood Demon Palace into this, I won't object. In short, there's nothing more than reason. We've agreed before that the more we win, the more we get. I've won 2 rounds, so I should take 400 million. That's the bare minimum. If anyone dares to give me less than a spirit stone, try it. I don't care if it's the Blood Demon Palace or the Clearwater Palace. No matter how famous you are, you still have to be reasonable. Otherwise it's no different from robbery. With such a large sum of money, he definitely wouldn't back down. Everyone looked at each other. This guy openly admitted to threatening Wen Zhongping. It seemed like he wouldn't stop until he got his hands on 400 million. Wen Zhongping would probably lose face in front of so many people, and he wouldn't let this go. Wen Zhongping wanted to use the name of the Blood Demon Palace to pressure xianxia, who knew that this guy didn't have any scruples at all. His words went straight to the face, not giving him any leeway to back down. Just as he was flushed with anger, Zhu Xianxian shouted, xianxia, this isn't a place for you to behave atrociously. He and xianxia had an old grudge and he had lost face because of it. Now there was a conflict of interest, so he couldn't help but jump out. How am I behaving atrociously? xianxia raised an eyebrow and asked, Zhu Xianxian, even though what I said wasn't pleasant to hear, Every word I said was the truth. Which part of it was nonsense? Are you going to use the name of the Daluo sect to pressure me? Have you ever seen me afraid of the Daluo sect? As soon as he said this, everyone immediately remembered how Yu Qianqiu killed Luo Xiaohan outside the Hundred Flowers Valley and how Zhu Xianxian avoided the battle. Recently, Yu Qianqiu had another fierce battle with the Daluo sect leader, and they really didn't see him afraid of the Daluo sect. These incidents had also caused the Daluo sect to lose face. Zhu Xianxian naturally let his imagination run wild when he heard this. He took a few steps forward but was stopped by Quan Deming. He couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation and said, "Yu Qianqiu, don't try to be eloquent. Do you dare to fight me to the death?" Everyone was shocked. Wen Zhongping was originally angry, but he was stunned by these words. He looked at Zhu Xianxian speechlessly and thought, even Luo Qingtian isn't his opponent, and you actually want to challenge him? Aren't you overestimating yourself? Let's just talk. Why do you have to find trouble for yourself? He was sober now. Yu Qianqiu was also stunned. He took out a black machete from his storage bag and stabbed it into the ground. He sneered and said, "A gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. If someone forces me to fight, they should first ask if my 6-foot black blade agrees to it." A murderous chill instantly burst forth from the blade. Everyone quivered. The black fellow's one blade is enough, power was still lingering in the air. Zhu Xianxian's pupils shrank when he saw the blade, and his anger had mostly cooled down. Qiu Weiyuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Everyone calm down and discuss this properly. Brother Yu, please put away the blade," he said and gave Quan Deming a look. Quan Deming understood and comforted Zhu Xianxian. He pulled him back to his original position, giving Zhu Xianxian a way out. When Zhongping was also pulled back by Qiu Weiyuan, Yu Qianqiu also turned around to persuade the people from the 4 major families to leave. He turned around and raised his hand to point at the blade. With a solemn expression, he said in a sonorous voice, "Not for money or reputation but for reason. The blade is fair and I will not keep it for now. I will set this as evidence. If there is any injustice, Yu Qianqiu is willing to uphold justice with this blade. Even if the blade is destroyed and I die, I will not hesitate." His words were very righteous and emotional, as if he himself was the embodiment of justice. Everyone present cursed in their hearts. If we want money but don't care about face, then you want money but don't want to lose face. Why are you pretending to be righteous? If it's money, then it's money. Why talk so much about reason? He's clearly telling everyone that if anyone dares to give him less than a piece of spirit stone, he will fight with them. Isn't this bullying? Chapter 400. The people from the 4 major families looked at each other and thought to themselves, no wonder the great ancestor chose him to be her personal disciple. He's really a talent. Bai Shan looked at Bai Zizong meaningfully, but the latter shook his head and smiled bitterly. Many people from the supporting Immortal Island sighed in their hearts. Such a talent was actually expelled from the supporting Immortal Island. If he was still around, he could take over Dongfang Chang'ao's position and represent the supporting Immortal Island in the cultivation world. He would definitely be able to fight for the greatest benefits for the supporting Immortal Island. The supporting Immortal Island lacked shameless people like him. Qiu Weiyuan's face twitched. He still couldn't understand why Yu Qianqiu said he wanted to join the 10,000 demons. He didn't know if it was true or not. Yu Qianqiu's face was solemn. He crossed his arms and stood beside the saber. He seemed to be determined to maintain fairness and justice. In fact, everyone knew what was going on. It wasn't as righteous as he made it out to be. In the end, it was all about money. However, no one blamed him now. This was the truth. There were some things that people wouldn't say even if they knew the truth. Once it was said, everyone would be embarrassed. If they were to fight, the consequences would be unpredictable. After all, those who could sit here were not 3-year-olds. There was a price to pay for being impulsive. But then again, if Yu Qianqiu didn't possess some strength and dared to cause trouble here, then he would have probably been slapped to death a long time ago. Similarly, if that was the case, he wouldn't have come here to court death. One should do things according to one's strength. Overestimating one's strength would only make one suffer. Retribution would always be on oneself. In the midst of the silence, Yan Wuchen, Niu Sen, Jin Yan, Fan Benlei and Dongfang Chang'ao walked in together. An aura that belonged to experts instantly covered the entire place. These 5 people were prominent figures from both the Orthodox and Demon sections. Everyone present stood slightly to pay their respects. The pupils of the 5 people shrank slightly. They saw the saber standing in the middle of the place and Yu Qianqiu guarding the side of the saber. What's going on? Yan Wuchen, who was seated at the front, asked in a deep voice as he swept his gaze across the crowd. Qiu Weiyuan immediately went over and explained the whole story respectfully. At the same time, Quan Deming also took the initiative to explain to Jin Yan and Fan Benlei. After understanding what was going on, Yan Wuchen glanced sideways at the few people around him. Then he stared at the unmoving Yu Qianqiu and walked over slowly. Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and turned around, just in time to meet Yan Wuchen's bright eyes. He also slowly turned around. Yan Wuchen had always exuded the aura of a superior, and at this moment, it was overpowering Yu Qianqiu, as though he wanted him to submit. However, Yu Qianqiu's eyes narrowed slightly. The experience of dominating an area in his previous life appeared in his mind. The pride that he had suppressed for a long time suddenly burst forth from his body. Two invisible auras of a superior were undoubtedly revealed. One aura that looked down on the world, the other aura that dominated an area. Suddenly they clashed and clashed. Ordinary mortals might not be able to see anything, but the cultivators present were especially sensitive to auras. They immediately picked up on some clues and looked at Yu Qianqiu in shock. They could clearly sense the decisive and murderous aura of a superior from Yu Qianqiu. It was impossible for someone who had not been an overlord for a long time to have such an aura. This was not something that could be faked easily. It might be able to deceive ordinary mortals, but in the eyes of a cultivator, it would be immediately exposed. At this moment, the scoundrel aura on Yu Qianqiu was nowhere to be seen. His entire person instantly changed. He looked at Yan Wuchen coldly and indifferently, without a trace of fear. In terms of aura, he could completely compete with Yan Wuchen. The people from the four great families did not expect Yu Qianqiu to have such a side to him. Purple Dress was slightly surprised, but she quickly calmed down. How could an ordinary person compare to Elder Bai's disciple? Yan Wuchen frowned slightly. His gaze paused on the black broadsword. He turned to look at the crowd and said, "The 10,000 demons agree with Yu Qianqiu's distribution method." After saying that, he continued walking forward. When he brushed past Yu Qianqiu, he stopped and tilted his head to say, "I heard that little brother is a talent of the younger generation. Seeing you today, you really do live up to your reputation." "Senior Yan, you flatter me," Yu Qianqiu replied indifferently. "I heard that little brother has already accepted Palace Lord Bu's invitation. When the time comes, I will find a chance to have a chat with little brother." "Senior, I admire your elegance. It is more than I could ask for. If there is a chance, I will definitely pay you a visit." Yu Qianqiu bowed slightly and said, "A negotiation between real superiors did not require too much nonsense. The exchange of conditions was reached with a look and a sentence. The meaning was simple. During the competition, Qiu Weiyuan drove you away. I am now sacrificing a lot of benefits to compensate you. Let's forget about what happened in the past. Courtesy demands reciprocity. The other party had made a lot of concessions and he did not lose anything." Naturally, Yu Qianqiu agreed. Yan Wuchen nodded and walked into the Cultivation Alliance. Jin Yan, Fan Benlei and the others also walked past Yu Qianqiu. Dongfang Chang'ao paused for a moment before he turned around and said to everyone, "Supporting Immortals Island agrees with Yu Qianqiu's distribution method." He took a deep look at Yu Qianqiu. The higher-ups of Supporting Immortals Island had long been informed by the sect master not to provoke Yu Qianqiu. Although Feng Xiangtian did not explain clearly, there must be something unusual behind it. After a few people who seemed to be more powerful went in, Qiu Weiyuan and Quan Deming looked at each other, and the latter said in a clear voice, "Does anyone have a different opinion?" All the sects were a little surprised. Why did even Yan Wuchen give in? This is a little strange. At this moment, Yuan Jiokue of the Hexapath Demon Sect suddenly said loudly, "The Hexapath Demon Sect has no opinion." All the sects were stunned again. Yuan Jiokue was at odds with Yu Qianqiu just a moment ago. Why did his attitude change so quickly? Yu Qianqiu was also a little puzzled. On the other side, Hua Yingyue of the Moon Clan also said, "The Moon Clan has no opinion either." Everyone looked at each other. Qiu Weiyuan looked around and said in a deep voice, "If no one objects, then this matter is decided." He naturally supported his master's decision. After a while, still no one said anything. Qiu Weiyuan didn't say anything more. He took out a storage pouch and handed it to Quan Deming of Supporting Immortal Island. Then he took out 2 storage pouches and handed them to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu took it and quickly counted it with his divine sense. After confirming that there were 400 million, he directly stuffed it into the storage bag. Then he picked up the broadsword on the ground and put it away with satisfaction. It seemed that he was not going to maintain fairness and justice anymore. The remaining 200 million was divided according to the proportion of the capital contribution. Xianxia stuffed a few million into his storage bag. Patting his storage bag, he slowly walked to Quan Deming's side and glanced at his storage bag. It was as if he was saying, "Now that you have money, it's time for you to pay me what you owe me." Quan Deming shook his head and bitterly smiled. He took out a bag of holding and gave it to Xianxia. Xianxia looked at it. 50 million was not a small amount, so he put it away. He didn't say much and casually walked out of the Cultivation Alliance. Everyone looked at him with indescribable feelings. They did not expect that supporting Immortals Island and the 10,000 demons would not get the biggest profit. Instead, they were taken advantage of by him. They made a lot of money. Ziyi followed him out excitedly. The two of them did not say goodbye to the four families and left. 100 Flower House. Xianxia returned to his room and was about to do some private things. Who knew that Ziyi would follow him? He asked, "Don't you know that it is dangerous for a man and a woman to be alone in a room?" Ziyi subconsciously looked around. She did not seem to know where the danger was. She asked weakly, "Xianxia, how much did we earn this time?" "Nearly 460 million. Why do you ask?" Xianxia asked suspiciously, "Do you want to buy something again?" "No, I was just asking," Ziyi said excitedly. She looked like a money grubber. Xianxia could not bear to see a beauty like this. He took her hand and sent her out of the room. He closed the door and said, "Go back to your room. Don't run around. Don't disturb my rest." Ziyi's footsteps could be heard as she walked back to her room. Xianxia locked the door and windows and looked around the room. After confirming that there was no one around, he disappeared from the room. In Utopia's military camp, Guanyu looked at the 3 storage bags on the table and clicked his tongue. 500 million. In just a few months he had obtained 500 million. Were spirit stones in the cultivation world so easy to obtain? How is the consumption of the limit-breaking pill? Xianxia asked as he lay on the chair and placed his legs on the table. Guan Yu's expression turned solemn as he said, "This limit-breaking pill is truly miraculous. Out of the 800 nascent soul cultivators, we've already created more than 300 early-stage tribulation-passing experts. With this 500 million, it's enough to create the remaining 500 nascent soul cultivators into early-stage tribulation-passing experts in a short period of time." "There are already 300? Good. Xianxia's eyes lit up. Then he frowned and said, "Just because their cultivation has reached a certain level doesn't mean that they have the strength of an early-stage tribulation-passing expert. Use the 500 million to raise the cultivation of the remaining 500 people as soon as possible. Then gather these 800 people together for combat training. Spirit stones are hard to obtain. I need to rely on these 800 people to lay eggs. The spirit stones of the 10,000 people behind us will depend on these 800 people." Guan Yu nodded. When he thought about the scene of 800 well-trained tribulation-passing experts being dragged out together, he could not help but gasp. He had organized combat training for a long time, so he could imagine how terrifying it would be if these people gathered together to fight. If Xianxia wanted to do something heartless, the consequences would be unimaginable. "You have to keep a close eye on my 2 disciples and Gu Qingyun. When their cultivation reaches the tribulation-passing stage, throw them into the combat training field and harshly hone them. It would be best to treat them as hypothetical enemies in the army and torture them to death. Of course, don't really kill them. It doesn't matter if they are beaten half to death. At most, they can come back after they have recovered." Xianxia said lightly, "They are your disciples. You really have the heart to do that?" Guan Yu said hesitantly. Xianxia shook his head and said, "It's not that I don't have the heart to do that. It's precisely because they are my disciples that I have to be strict with them. It's better to sweat and bleed than to lose their lives when the time comes." Chapter 401. In the Cultivation Alliance of the 100 Flowers Valley, Yan Wuqin and the other experts at the end of the tribulation-passing stage had already left. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. Over the past few days, it was rare for him to have such free time. Xianxia was bored, so he basically hid in his room and studied the jade archives that recorded the rules of the star chart circulation. He wanted to comprehend the remaining 3 star charts as soon as possible. In the vast sea of stars, the star paths were complicated. Perhaps it was because he was anxious for quick results, but it was difficult for him to calm down. He was deep in thought, but he was unable to connect the dots. As for Ziyi, she had just experienced the prosperity of the world. How could she stay alone for a long period of time? Xianxia simply let Wu Liqing and the other 3 bring her around so that she wouldn't keep sneaking into his room, which would disturb him even more. For the next few days the four of them made Ziyi very happy. They had a lot of fun. Actually, Yu could tell that the four of them seemed to be interested in Ziyi, but he couldn't really say anything about it. A daughter of a family was sought after by hundreds of families. Whoever could pursue her depended on their ability. Everyone was on the same side, so there was no need for him to stop them. With his thoughts on his mind, he stopped in front of the window. Suddenly, he saw Bai Shan and the other three rushing into the 100 Flowers house. He knew that they were probably looking for him. Sure enough, not long after, there was a series of footsteps and a knock on the door. Yu Qianqiu said, "Come in." After Bai Shan and the other three entered, they bowed in unison and greeted, "Mr." Yu Qianqiu turned around and smiled, "Why are you all in such a hurry? Is something the matter?" The four of them looked rather solemn. Bai Shan nodded and said, "The people that the Cultivation Alliance sent to the Eastern Sea to keep an eye on Yanbu Gui have sent news. This morning, several hundred flying artifacts filled with people landed on the Wuji Island. I'm afraid that the foreign cultivators are already prepared to make their move." "So soon? I'm not ready yet." Yu Qianqiu frowned. Bai Shan continued to say, "The Cultivation Alliance has gathered all the people in charge of the various sects to discuss this matter. The four of us have already been notified by the elders that the four great families will follow Mr.'s lead and follow Mr.'s decision. Mr., please represent the four great families in this Cultivation Alliance convention." Yu Qianqiu was slightly startled. He waved his hand and said, No, this responsibility is too great. I can't bear it." He knew what the four great clans were thinking. They wanted to tie him to the four great clans, and their target was naturally Bai Changchun. It could be said that they had sacrificed a lot and put in a lot of effort. However, if a great battle were to break out, his advantage was to be flexible in the dark. He couldn't fight head-on. If the situation was really critical, he could run away and hide at any time. Dragging the four great clans with him was not a burden, but it was definitely inconvenient. The strength of the four great clans was not weak, but now was not the time to be greedy. "Sir." Bai Shan still wanted to persuade him, but Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and interrupted, "Don't say any more. I'll tell you the truth. This time, my master has entrusted me with something else. I'll just follow along and play with some things. If I get too involved, it will affect my own matters. If my master gets angry, no one in the world can bear it." He simply used Bai Changchun as a shield. The four of them looked at each other. Bai Shan asked, "Sir, can you tell us what it is? Perhaps the four great clans can do something for the great ancestor." "I can't say that." Yu Qianqiu smiled and refused. The four of them begged again, but Yu Qianqiu wouldn't agree no matter what. In the end, the four of them had no choice but to leave. They had to report this matter to the four great clans as soon as possible. After the four of them left, he stood by the window and pondered for a long time. In the end, he went downstairs leisurely. He took a table, ordered some free food and slowly enjoyed it alone. It was really leisurely. The shopkeeper of the 100 Flowers house was speechless. He had never seen such a righteous person who ate and drank for free. He didn't know how long he was going to stay. Just as he was enjoying his wine, Xianhui came in from outside the shop. He glanced inside and saw him. He quickly walked over and smiled, "You're in such a good mood. I volunteered to invite you. Give me some face and come with me to the Cultivation Alliance first." "Invite me?" Yu Qianqiu was startled. "Invite me for what?" "The lone cultivators nominated you to be their representative. You'll represent them to participate in the Alliance conference." Xianhui smiled. "Nominated me to be their representative? What a joke. I don't even know them. Tell them I won't do it." Yu Qianqiu refused without saying anything. He subconsciously felt that there was a conspiracy. He had just rejected the four great clans, and now there was a group of lone cultivators. Who knew them? "That's good. Why don't you go? Others can't even beg for it." Xianhui felt strange. "Good." Yu Qianqiu's hand paused. He asked, "What's good about it?" "The fact that the lone cultivators recommended you means that everyone recognizes your strength. They believe that you can protect their interests. That's what everyone wants. Isn't that a good thing?" Xianhui said matter-of-factly. Yu Qianqiu was still doubtful. Xianhui cupped his hands and said, "Yu Qianqiu, just give me some face and go. I've said in front of Elder Quan that I'll definitely invite you. If you don't go, I'll be laughed at." After begging and pestering, Yu Qianqiu finally couldn't resist his begging and was kicked out of the 100 Flowers house. On the way, Yu Qianqiu said solemnly, "I'll see what it is first. If it's a thankless task, tell them to find someone else as soon as possible." As long as you go, I'll be able to report. Even if you turn around and come back, it's none of my business. Xianhui smiled. Yu Qianzhou looked at him in surprise. He had a look that said, "You're so cruel." He didn't know when this guy became so smart. He used to think he was stupid. Actually, there were only a few hundred lone cultivators who joined the Cultivation Alliance. Their cultivation levels weren't too bad either. At the very least, they were at the core formation stage. Those with low cultivation levels were still worrying about earning spiritual stones for cultivation. They didn't have the time to think about how to integrate into the upper class of the cultivation world. Even if they had the intention, they might not even be willing to look them in the eye. Outside the Cultivation Alliance, Xianhui led Yu Qianzhou to more than 600 lone cultivators in different clothes. There were men and women, old and young, and their cultivation levels varied. Yu Qianzhou glanced at the crowd roughly and found that many of them had higher cultivation levels than him. With a puzzled expression, he cupped his hands and said, "I'm Yu Qianzhou. Although I'm also a lone cultivator, I don't know why I'm chosen to be the representative of the lone cultivators." The group of people looked at Yu Qianzhou with awe. This was the guy who had caused a stir in the past. A few days ago, he even killed 2 cultivators in the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage. It was said that he had taken a big bite out of the big sect's hands. It was said that he had 400 to 500 million. When had such a powerful lone cultivator appeared in the cultivation world? Not only did he steal from the big sect's mouths, it was said that he had also publicly threatened the other sections. Even the old devil Yan Wuxian had to give him face. As a fellow lone cultivator, who else could we recommend if not you? If it were someone else, we wouldn't be convinced. At this time, a man with a thick beard came out and cupped his hands. "Mr. Yu, we are a part of the Chinese cultivation world. Now that the Chinese cultivation world is facing a foreign invasion, we are willing to do our best. However, although we have this intention, the other sects may not take us seriously. You have a high cultivation level and are famous in the cultivation world. Both the righteous and demonic sects have to give you some face. With you as the representative of the lone cultivators, I believe that the big sects will not look down on us because of you. At least, they won't let us be wronged for nothing. Therefore, we recommend you to be our representative. If it were someone else, I, Hongming, would be the first to be unconvinced. Yes, if it were someone else, we wouldn't be convinced. Please don't refuse, sir. We believe in you." The group of people chattered. So that's how it is. Yu Qianzhou looked at the crowd thoughtfully. If the sects were the regular army, then these people were the guerrillas. It was hard to refuse such kindness. Could it be that I have to be the guerrilla leader again? Guerrillas were good. If they could win, they would fight. If they couldn't, they would run. Most importantly, they had more freedom. They could also find an excuse not to fight head-on. This representative was worth it. Since you all think so highly of me, I have no reason to refuse. Shall I give it a try? Yu Qianzhou said. "Thank you, sir." The bearded lone cultivator, Hongming, was the first to reply. The others also echoed him. It was not orderly at all. They were indeed the characteristics of lone cultivators. Yu Qianzhou frowned. The words unorganized and undisciplined appeared in his mind. However, he did not say anything and nodded to Xianhui. Xianhui led him into the Cultivation Alliance. As soon as they entered, they saw hundreds of sects representatives surrounding the flat ground, discussing non-stop. The big sects sat in the center circle. Bai Shan was also among them. However, he did not see anyone else from the 4 big clans. Bai Shan was probably the representative of the 4 big clans. Xianhui reported to Quan Deming and retreated. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yu Qianzhou. They had a strange look on their faces. This guy had become the representative of lone cultivators in the blink of an eye. Yu Qianzhou did not care about that. He grabbed a futon and threw it on the ground. He sat on the outermost circle. The small sects representatives on both sides subconsciously moved to the left and right. Although he was the representative of the non-mainstream lone cultivators, he was a person who liked to be in the limelight. Ordinary small sects would not dare to provoke him. The sects continued to discuss. Yu Qianzhou did not say anything and listened quietly. It turned out that the problem of manpower and financial resources had been solved. In terms of financial resources, the Cultivation Alliance would send people to supervise the sect's spiritual stone mines. Half of the output of each spiritual stone mine would be supplied to the Cultivation Alliance. In terms of manpower, the righteous sects would be led by supporting Immortal's Island. The demonic sects would be led by 10,000 demons. The allocation of resources between the righteous and demonic sects would be coordinated by supporting Immortal's Island and 10,000 demons. It seemed that when the sects faced the threat of life and death, The previous problems were no longer a problem. They were quickly solved. As for what happened after that, Yu Qianqiu listened to it. It was all about the righteous and demonic sects preparing for war. There was also the issue of spiritual stone distribution. No one talked about the lone cultivators. This was a good thing, but since so many lone cultivators had joined the Cultivation Alliance, why didn't the lone cultivators get a share of the activity funds? As the representative of the lone cultivators, if he did not fight for it, who would fight for it? He had just taken office and he was not given any funds. This was clearly a slap to his face. Yu Qianqiu's face darkened. He slowly stood up and said in a low voice, "I have an opinion." Chapter 402. Everyone turned to look and were slightly stunned when they saw that it was him. They did not know what he had to say, but his expression did not look too good. Qiu Weiyuan rubbed his head, feeling a headache coming on. It was fine if this guy did not speak, but once he did, it was hard to imagine what he would say. His opinions were always hard to bear. Why did he always feel helpless every time he met this guy? He sighed and asked, "Brother Yu, why don't you share your opinions with us?" Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists expressionlessly and said, "I'm not sure if everyone knows, but I'm fortunate enough to be the representative of the itinerant cultivators who are temporarily residing in the Chinese cultivation world." Everyone looked at each other. Bai Shan frowned and thought, "You're not willing to be the representative of the four major clans, but the representative of the itinerant cultivators. What's the meaning of this?" Qiu Weiyuan nodded and said, "Of course we know about this. What are you trying to say?" "I want to ask everyone. Every sect has a share in the distribution of the spirit stones. Why aren't there any for the itinerant cultivators? They are also willing to do their bit for the Chinese cultivation world. Why do you have to treat them differently? This seems to be unfair. I hope everyone can consider the itinerant cultivators and allocate a share from the budget." Yu Qianqiu said solemnly. "For money again." Everyone was speechless. Qiu Weiyuan looked around and said, "This money was gathered from the daily mining of the spirit stone mines by the various sections. It is only natural for it to be returned to the hands of the various sects when it is needed. Wandering cultivators did not contribute a single spirit stone, yet they have to take a share. This is indeed a bit unreasonable. Brother Yu, you're making things difficult for us." That's right. That's right. How can we split the money without contributing anything?" The sects roared in agreement. "Everyone, please listen to me." Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists at everyone. After the discussion died down, he continued, "I, Yu Qianqiu, have always been the most reasonable person. I would never do something so unreasonable. Itinerant cultivators were weak in the cultivation world. It was impossible for them to occupy famous mountains and great lakes to mine spirit stones like the various sects, so where would they get the money to hand it over? They had always lived and died on their own. In order to survive, they often did despicable things, so the other sects did not care about them. To put it bluntly, no sect thought highly of them. Even so, but..." Looking around, Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and pointed outside. He said emotionally, "Right outside, those unaffiliated cultivators who you don't like joined the Cultivation Alliance without hesitation when they heard that the cultivators of wuxia are in trouble. They are willing to sacrifice their lives for the cultivators of wuxia at any time. Their selflessness can be proved by the sun and the moon." Yu Qianqiu. Qiu Weiyuan couldn't bear to listen any longer, and couldn't help but interrupt. Then, he looked at the reactions of the various sects, only to see that they weren't moved by his words at all. The expressions on their faces were very strange, and it was clear that they were thinking the same thing as him. "Brother Yu, just tell me how much money you want. But let me make it clear first, if you ask for too much, we won't give you any more." Qiu Weiyuan was too lazy to beat around the bush with him. If he really went around in circles, who knew where he would end up, and the loss might be even greater. Yu Qianqiu's expression softened a little. It was fine as long as he gave money. For such things, if you did not ask for it, they would not give it to you. You would only have a chance if you asked for it. No matter how much it was better than nothing. Therefore he nodded in relief. "Actually, they never asked me, their representative, to make any requests to the Cultivation Alliance. But I feel that with a stable source of spirit stones, the hearts of the people will be stable, and it will be easier to command. Senior Qiu, there are more than 600 people outside. How about 100 superior grade spirit stones per month for each of them?" "You're crazy." Qiu Weiyuan was almost roaring. "I, the palace master of 10,000 demons, can't even get 100 superior grade spirit stones per month. You want us to give each of them 100 superior grade spirit stones per month for a group of lone cultivators? "Yu Qianshou, you've gone too far." The criticism from the various sects came one after another, and it was simply the anger of the crowd. Yu Qianshou was stunned for a moment before he reacted. In recent years he had gotten used to earning a lot of money, and he had almost forgotten that each faction's money was also accumulated over many years. He had never heard of anyone receiving more than 100 high-grade spirit stones in a month, not even 50 high-grade spirit stones. Some sects even distributed low-grade spirit stones and a dozen low-grade spirit stones. Of course, the people with high positions in the various sects could use a lot of spirit stones, but it was completely different from receiving them according to the rules. Damn it. I've broadened my horizons too fast and I almost forgot the days when I was poor. How shameful. Yu Qianshou said awkwardly, Please calm down everyone. I was too quick with my words and I misspoke. I said 1 superior grade spirit stone as 100 superior grade spirit stones. Please don't misunderstand. I think you're so rich that 100 superior grade spirit stones are nothing to you, right? The Luo sect's Zhu Xianxian couldn't help but say. When everyone heard this, they looked at Yu Qianshou in deep thought. This guy was young, but he had a lot of money on him. Just the money he had gotten in this period of time, 100 upper grade spirit stones, was not even a drop in the bucket. Zhu, what do you mean by that? Yu Qianshou glanced at him coldly and his tone darkened. He raised his eyebrows and said, I've said something wrong and I've already apologized. Are you trying to pick a fight with me? If so, just say it, I'll play with you anytime. Zhu Xianxian was also a dignified De Luo sect's representative. After being provoked in front of everyone, how could he bear it? Even if he could bear it, he couldn't. If he didn't put on an act, he would be humiliated by Yu Qianshou again and again. How could he face others in the future? He immediately jumped up from the cattail hassock and Quan Deming, who was beside him, immediately pulled him back. This was something that everyone had expected. Yu Qianshou, don't be so arrogant. You'll get what you deserve sooner or later. Zhu Xianxian roared, still unwilling to give up. The various sects' representatives shook their heads. What happened in the past was already in the past, and a little humiliation should be tolerated. Since you can't win against him, why can't you control your mouth? Aren't you just looking for trouble? Yu Qianshou sneered, Don't worry, if I really get what I deserve, I'll definitely kill you first. Hearing this, the group of people sitting cross-legged looked at each other speechlessly. They sighed inwardly. The current Yu Qianshou was no longer the Yu Qianshou of the past. Not to mention Zhu Xianxian, as long as he had a saber in his hand, how many people would dare to challenge him? They didn't manage to kill this brat back then, but now that this brat had made a name for himself, and his momentum was growing, it wouldn't be easy to deal with him again. Alright, don't talk so much. Can't you see the situation now? We're here to discuss a solution, not to quarrel. Qiu Wuyuan shouted. The way he looked at Zhu Xianxian was clearly telling him that he asked for it. The way he looked at Yu Qianshou was complicated. If the 10,000 demons really recruited this brat, they didn't know if it would be a blessing or a disaster. No matter where he went, he would get into trouble. Those loose cultivators were really ruthless. They actually pushed this brat out to be their representative. Who knew what trouble he would cause in the future? Quan Deming helplessly pushed Zhu Xianxian back to the cattail hassock, then looked at Yu Qianshou and said, Yu Qianshou, it's impossible to get 1 top-grade spirit stone. Only the disciples who are always ready for battle can get 1 top-grade spirit stone every month. The loose cultivators that you represent have not been assigned any missions yet. How can they enjoy the same treatment as the disciples who are always in danger? You keep saying that it's fair, but do you think it's fair? That didn't seem right. Yu Qianshou scratched his nose and said, Elder Quan, there are at least tens of thousands of disciples from all the sects who are ready for battle, and I only have about 600 people here. 1 spirit stone per person, that's only about 600 in a month. Compared to the huge financial resources of the entire Cultivation Alliance, this is a small amount. Do you think you can make an exception? You still wanted to fight for it. No matter how big their financial resources are, they're still prepared. Once the war starts, the consumption of elixirs and instruments will be huge, and they need to spend a lot of money to purchase them. Also, a large amount of money is used as a reward, and it's not something that can be given to anyone, Quan Deming explained. If it was someone else, they would have been thrown out long ago. Who would have bothered to bargain with him and explain so much? Then how much can you give? Yu Qianshou frowned. Quan Deming and Qiu Wuyuan exchanged a look, and Qiu Wuyuan looked at the crowd and shook his head. Since these 600 individual cultivators are also members of the Cultivation Alliance, I suggest we reduce the spiritual stones given by half, and give them 50 mid-grade spiritual stones. What do you guys think? After a month, it's only about 300 top-grade spiritual stones. I think it's acceptable. Quan Deming nodded. I think it's acceptable too, Bai Shan, who represented the 4 major families, said. Hua Yingyue from the Moon Clan also said it was acceptable, followed by Yuan Jiokue from the 6 Paths Demon Clan. Everyone couldn't help but look at Yuan Jiokue. The first 2 families were still understandable, but since when did the 6 Paths Demon Clan stand on Yu Qianzhou's side? Yu Qianzhou was also a little puzzled. What did this old guy mean by showing his goodwill so many times? The other sects wouldn't start a feud with Yu Qianzhou over a mere 300 spiritual stones in front of him. The matter was passed almost smoothly. Although the money was a little less, Yu Qianzhou had his own plan, so he didn't argue too much. Just as he was about to sit down, he heard Qiu Weiyuan say, Yu Qianzhou, since those individual cultivators have enjoyed the benefits of the Cultivation Alliance, they have to be restrained by the Cultivation Alliance. They are not like the disciples of other sects, and they are used to being alone. If the situation is critical and they are needed, can you restrain them? Hearing this, Yu Qianzhou straightened his back and said with a cold tone, I have never forced them. But since they pushed me to be the leader, it's too late for them to not be restrained by me from the moment I stepped into this place. If one doesn't listen, I'll kill one. If 2 don't listen, I'll kill a pair. If worst comes to worst, I'll kill them all. Hearing this, everyone's heart trembled. This madman might really do something like that. At first, they thought that those individual cultivators were cunning and pushed him to be the leader. Now that they thought about it, many of them were going to be in trouble. Just as everyone was thinking, Yu Qianzhou suddenly changed the topic. He looked around and said proudly, it won't be long before you see these 600 individual cultivators will be like an invincible army. Wherever I point, they will fight. There is no question of not being restrained by me. You will see. Chapter 403. Hearing this, everyone was stunned for a moment before they smiled. It was a fool's dream to command a group of rogue cultivators as an army in the secular world in a short period of time. Not to mention rogue cultivators, even among the disciples of the various sects, how many of them had the spirit to sacrifice themselves and put their lives in the hands of others? This matter was passed off as a joke and no one cared about it. They continued to discuss the issue of coordination and command between the various sections. Yu Qianzhou sat at the back and listened to him obediently. The various sects seemed to be trying their best to avoid the issue of rogue cultivators. From the beginning to the end, no one proposed to assign tasks to the rogue cultivators. In reality, no one wanted to provoke him, lest this guy ask for money again if they were to get involved. Although it had nothing to do with him, Yu Qianzhou listened very seriously. After the discussion, he was the first to walk out of the Cultivation Alliance. Outside the door, a group of rogue cultivators had not left. They were chatting idly while waiting for him. As soon as they saw him come out, they immediately quietened down and looked at him, hoping to hear some good news. Almost everyone present was the best among the rogue cultivators, but rogue cultivators were rogue cultivators. In the cultivation world, they were like the poorest people in the secular world. They yearned to integrate into the upper class of society, but it was extremely difficult. Therefore, they hoped to use this opportunity to gain the recognition of the various sections. Yu Qianzhou paced back and forth on the steps outside the door. After thinking for a while, he stopped and looked at the crowd with a faint smile. Just now, some of you questioned me as the representative of the rogue cultivators. You're afraid that I won't be able to restrain you at the critical moment. Although I've already patted my chest and promised, I still want to know the truth from everyone. Are you really willing to follow my orders? If not, it's not too late to regret it now, lest something unpleasant happens in the future. Yes. Many people shouted without hesitation. There were also many people who looked at each other and hesitated for a while before reluctantly shouting the word yes. It seemed that there were many people who wanted to make use of Yu Qianzhou, but there were probably not many who were willing to listen to him. Coincidentally, there were people from various sects coming out from the door. When they saw this scene, they all shook their heads and left with a smile. The meaning was clear. A rogue cultivator was a rogue cultivator. Yu Qianzhou took in the expressions of the rogue cultivators. His eyes narrowed and a hint of sharpness flashed across them. He smiled and said, "It's good that everyone is willing. There's something I want to tell you." Originally, the Cultivation Alliance's budget of spirit stones was only given to the sects that had contributed money. None of you had contributed money, so you didn't get a share. However, under my efforts, the Alliance agreed to let us enjoy half of the disciples of each sect who were preparing for the war. Each of you can receive 50 mid-grade spirit stones per month. Although the money is small, it has nothing to do with us for the time being. If there is a need for us in the future, I will definitely fight for it for everyone. I will not let anyone suffer a loss. Everyone's expression was a bit gloomy. The Cultivation Alliance obviously did not treat them the same as the disciples of the other sections. Amidst the silence, a woman's voice suddenly grumbled softly, "I thought what would happen if I pushed him to be the representative. I didn't expect it to still be like this. Then why should we be controlled by him?" Then a man reprimanded in a low voice, "Shut up. If you have something to say, go back and talk." Everyone looked towards the two who spoke. Xianxia heard the voice and looked over. In the crowd there was a man and a woman who seemed to be a couple. Both of them had a cultivation level of the late core formation stage. The woman's clothes were revealing more than half of her full breasts. She had quite an enchanting charm. The man's face was fierce-looking and fierce. The two of them were avoiding Xianxia's gaze with flickering eyes. What a full and charming stunner. Xianxia clicked his tongue. His gaze was unscrupulously lingering on the woman's breasts. Then he walked down the stairs towards the two. The people in front of him made way for him. When he arrived in front of the two, he looked at the woman and asked with a smile, "I wonder if this beauty is already taken?" His gaze was still constantly taking advantage of her. When everyone heard this, they were stunned. They didn't expect that this Xianxia was also a lecher. At first, the two of them panicked. They thought that Xianxia wanted to do something. They didn't expect him to say something like this. After the woman recovered from her shock, an amorous expression appeared on her face. Her bright eyes were watery as she looked at him. The man's face was filled with shame and anger. He looked at Xianxia in front of him as if he was trying his best to suppress his anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "Mister, please behave yourself. We are dual cultivation partners." "So that's how it is." Xianxia nodded slightly. He looked at the man and smiled. "I said before that if you don't want to listen to my orders, it's not too late to regret it. Otherwise, something unpleasant will happen in the future. However, someone just said that he was willing, but in the blink of an eye, he changed his mind. He's clearly playing with me. What do you think we should do with people who go back on their words?" The woman already felt that something was wrong. She subconsciously retreated. The man quickly cupped his hands and said, "Mister, please forgive me." Xianxia waved his hand and interrupted him. He pointed at the woman and said, "Kill her and I'll spare your life. Otherwise we'll die together." The loose cultivators looked at each other speechlessly. This guy was going to kill someone if he was unhappy. Everyone slowly retreated, afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. The man's expression changed. He and the woman both retreated. Suddenly, a cold light flashed from the storage pouch on their waists. The two immediately jumped onto their flying swords and tried to escape. Xianxia stood expressionlessly. In an instant, dozens of green lights shot out from his sleeves. With a hissing sound, they tore through the air and chased after the two of them. Two screams were heard. The green lights flashed in the air and two clouds of blood mist appeared. With Xianxia's current cultivation, he didn't even care about the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage. How could two cultivators in the late stage of the core formation stage be a match for him? He killed them easily. Along with the shrill screams, many people immediately dashed out from the Cultivation Alliance. Xuanhuan, Quan Deming, and the others came out just in time to see the end. Dozens of green lights returned from the sky and slipped into Xianxia's sleeves. "What happened?" Quan Deming asked one of the disciples guarding the door. The disciple immediately told him what happened. Xuanhuan, Quan Deming, and the others looked at each other. This guy really didn't hold back. Previously, he told them to kill one person if they didn't listen. If they didn't listen, he would kill both of them. The group of loose cultivators grieved. Many of them secretly regretted recommending Xianxia to be their leader. They didn't know what would happen to them in the future. It was too late to back out now. However, in the following period of time, Xianxia's actions greatly surprised everyone. He spent a sum of money to prepare a one-piece black suit for every loose cultivator. He even specially embroidered the word "loose cultivator" on the chest. Usually, he led everyone to tour around the 100 Flowers Valley every day. He called it unified training, but in fact, everyone just had to follow him to play. Every day he left early and returned late. When he returned to the 100 Flowers Valley, he paid out of his own pocket and treated everyone to good wine and food for free. The group of people was confused and didn't know what he was doing. In the end, they were too lazy to think about it and simply followed him. After all, they didn't have to pay out of their own pocket. Therefore, a group of masked people could be seen in the 100 Flowers Valley every day. Not only were they masked, but the word embroidered on their chests told everyone who they were. Such an unusual action naturally attracted the attention of various sections. They all secretly sent people to investigate. In the end, they found out that this group of people was so bored every day. They were either hunting in the mountains or catching fish in the rivers. They were completely mystifying. In the end, they were too lazy to send people to investigate. Anyway, it was a group of loose cultivators. Let that lunatic do whatever he wants, as long as they didn't cause any trouble. Ziyi also didn't understand what Xianxia was doing. After playing with him a few times, she also felt bored. It was more fun to be with the 4 people who flattered her every day. Therefore, she went further and further with Bai Zitsong and the other 3. In the beginning, they didn't return for 1 or 2 days, but now they didn't return for several days. Xianxia didn't care about her. He still led a group of masked loose cultivators to train. Half a month later, Yan Bugui's side began to launch a few probing attacks. Several small sects were wiped out by them. The wuxia cultivators immediately made a decision. They couldn't be passive. They had to take the initiative to attack. The people of the righteous and devil sects were urgently mobilized. After setting up defenses in some important places, a large number of elites began to gather, preparing to attack Yan Bugui's lair, Wuji Island. In the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance in the 100 Flowers Valley, except for some representatives of various sects, almost all the people who could be used were transferred away. The only one who didn't move was Xianxia and his group of loose cultivators. However, they also received a mission that was almost not dangerous. That was to help defend the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance. On the day they received the mission, the people of the Cultivation Alliance who should leave had left. As usual, Xianxia led a group of loose cultivators to wander around. After arriving at a remote valley outside the 100 Flowers Valley, Xianxia looked around and gathered everyone together to give them a lecture as usual. After giving his lecture, he continued to circle around this group of people who were standing in a disorderly manner with a smile. However, today was the day he had been planning for a long time. Something was destined to happen. He went around to the back of the hundreds of people. His smile suddenly became strange. He faced the crowd and opened his 5 fingers. A divine sense instantly shrouded everyone. Everyone immediately felt that something was wrong. When they came to their senses, the surrounding scene had changed. It was the same valley, but not even a blade of grass grew. Around them, there was another group of masked people holding Dharma artifacts. However, there was no word loose cultivators on their chests. They had already surrounded them. The only one who didn't wear a mask was a red-faced, long-bearded man in green. The man with an extraordinary bearing sat on an unusually strong horse. He stroked his beard and said in a deep voice, "You have all been surrounded by me. Give up the meaningless resistance and I will spare your lives." "Where is this? How could this be? Who are you?" The group of loose cultivators looked around in confusion. They didn't see Xianxia. In a panic, they quickly took out their Dharma artifacts and prepared to defend themselves. Guan Yu's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly. He raised his hand and waved. Without saying a word, the masked people around him each took out a handful of astral breaker talismans and threw them out. Bam, bam, bam. There was a loud explosion. The strong air wave shook the group of loose cultivators. Screams could be heard everywhere. Then, like wolves entering a flock of sheep, the masked people around them started a crazy massacre. Chapter 404. Xianxia. What? Someone screamed before he died. The rogue cultivators who had fallen into chaos were awakened by this scream. Everyone suddenly realized that they had been eating and drinking for free all this time just to numb themselves. No wonder they couldn't figure out the reason. They didn't expect the price to be so high that they had to pay with their lives. All kinds of curses were directed at Xianxia. The number of people on both sides was similar, but it was a completely oppressive massacre. A rogue cultivator released a flying sword to counterattack, but it was immediately shot down by the opponent's flying sword. Before he could react, he felt a chill in his back and a flying sword pierced through his chest. Another rogue cultivator wanted to escape on his sword. As soon as he rose up, he felt a chill in his waist. His upper body tilted and was separated from his lower body, and his intestines flowed out. The surrounding masked men were all at the crossing calamity stage. They cooperated seamlessly with each other, attacking and defending at the same time. They attacked mercilessly. The group of rogue cultivators didn't even have a chance to escape. In an instant they collapsed. Cries of grief and indignation suddenly sounded, and then suddenly disappeared. If it weren't for the corpses everywhere in the valley and the strong smell of blood, no one would believe that the surprise attack ended in such a short time. As soon as the battle was over, the masked man quickly cleaned up the battlefield. The storage pouches and various magic tools were quickly picked up. The corpses were also quickly piled up. From the beginning to the end, no one made a single sound. Everything was carried out in silence. Xianxia suddenly appeared beside Guanyu. Looking at the team members in the valley cleaning up the battlefield in an orderly manner, he nodded slightly and said, "My efforts were not in vain. There were more than 600 people. Why did you kill them all? You could have used them for your own purposes." Guanyu got off the horse and asked. Red Rabbit seemed unwilling to witness such a bloody scene, so it turned around and galloped away. "There are many reasons. I don't need to explain them one by one." Xianxia said indifferently, "I wanted to use these 600 people to test the effect of your training. This is one of the reasons." Guanyu frowned, and his gaze moved from him to the team members in the valley. After the masked team members gathered the corpses, a few of them took out fire talismans and threw them out, preparing to destroy the corpses. With a buzz sound, a raging fire ignited, and the bloody corpse was engulfed in flames. Thick black smoke began to rise, and a burnt smell filled the air. Xianxia's nostrils flared, and with a wave of his hand, a green fireball landed on the corpse. The green flames exploded and quickly engulfed the red flames. The rapid rise in temperature forced the masked men in the surroundings to retreat. Not long after, the fire was extinguished, and the corpses were all turned into ashes. The team members quickly formed into two teams. The two leaders of the team rushed over and handed 2 storage bags to Guanyu. Inside the bags were the spoils of war they had just collected. Guanyu took the storage bag and looked at Xianxia. Seeing him nod, Guanyu immediately turned around and shouted, "Change." The 2 leaders flashed back and all the team members immediately moved. They took off their masked clothes and stuffed them into the storage bag. Then they took out another set of masked clothes from the storage bag and put them on. After they were done, the words "Rogue Cultivator" were written on their chests. There were also 600 people, and they were exactly the same as the 600 people who had just been massacred. However, their aura was completely different. They lined up neatly and stood solemnly. Xianxia stepped forward, looked down, and waved his arm. "Special Battle Team 1st Battalion, Special Battle Team 2nd Battalion, remember your profession is a soldier. A soldier's profession is to never stop fighting. I have painstakingly trained you all for this moment. Today you will officially follow me into battle. Perhaps this road will be filled with thorns, danger, and death, but I believe that you are the one and only soldiers in the cultivation world. You can overcome all difficulties and obstacles, and the outside world will become more wonderful because of you. We pledge our lives to follow the leader. Long live the leader. Long live the leader." All the team members shouted at the top of their lungs, and their voices echoed in the valley for a long time. Xianxia waved his hand and pointed in the direction of Utopia's military camp. He said loudly, "There are close to 10,000 soldiers in Utopia. You are the first batch of members to officially follow me into battle. You are also the first batch of soldiers who have used the limit-breaking pill and spent a large amount of spirit stones to create. You bear the heavy responsibility of helping the latecomers to break through to the tribulation stage. Are you ready?" Invincible. Invincible. All the team members were impassioned. "I don't think that every cultivator can live forever, but..." Xianxia suddenly waved his arms and shouted, "I can guarantee you that your bloody battle today will give your future generations a land without oppression and exploitation in Utopia. Those with outstanding battle achievements. A monument will be erected in Utopia and passed down to future generations. Long live the leader. Long live the leader." All the team members shouted again. After mobilizing everyone before the battle, Xianxia looked at everyone affectionately. Then he waved his hand and shouted, "Let's go." More than 600 team members disappeared, leaving Guanyu alone to look at the empty valley. After a long time, Guanyu whistled and Red Rabbit galloped over. He mounted the majestic horse and looked in the direction of Ethereal Palace for a long time. Then he galloped straight for the military camp. In a hidden valley outside the 100 Flowers Valley, Xianxia and a group of team members quietly appeared. All the team members observed their surroundings warily. With a wave of Xianxia's hand, hundreds of well-trained team members immediately spread out and conducted a carpet search. After confirming that they were not being watched, they returned and gave him an okay gesture. Xianxia nodded in relief. He took out 2 jade archives and handed them to the 2 battalion commanders of the special forces. He said, "This is a detailed map of the area outside the 100 Flowers Valley. The 2 battalions are to be divided into 60 squads. Look for favorable terrain to hide outside the 100 Flowers Valley. Try your best to form an encirclement. Take note. You must ensure that the communication between squads will not be cut off. If anything happens, you can respond to each other. Also, there are some things to take note of regarding your current identities in the Jade Archives. Read them carefully." "Understood," the 2 battalion commanders replied. Xianxia continued, "If you're discovered while you're hiding, you can tell them my name. Tell them that you're my men. If anyone still insists on provoking me after knowing my name, kill them on the spot. All right, carry out the order." "Yes." The 2 team members saluted, then quickly returned to their squads with the Jade Archives in hand. These 2 Jade Archives were personally drawn by Xianxia while he was touring around the 100 Flowers Valley with a group of rogue cultivators. He had prepared them specifically for today. Once the plan was issued, the 600 team members split up into squads and spread out in all directions, hiding among the lofty mountains and lofty ridges. The long sword on Xianxia's back popped out. Stepping on it, he leisurely flew into the 100 Flowers Valley. He shook his head and hummed a Peking opera tune. "I was admiring the mountain scenery from the city tower when I heard the commotion outside the city. Banners fluttered in the air, but it turned out to be the troops sent by Xianxia. Under the twilight, he entered the 100 Flowers Valley. Many people found it strange when they saw him. Where had all the masked rogue cultivators gone? Every time, more than 600 people would return. It was truly a majestic sight. Why was there only one person left now?" Ignoring the gazes of the crowd, Xianxia returned to the 100 Flowers residence. He went upstairs and pushed open Ziyi's room. He realized that she hadn't returned yet. It had been 4 to 5 days since she last returned. He couldn't help but frown. He hoped that nothing bad had happened. Otherwise, Nongzhu would fight him to the death. Thinking about it, he felt relieved. With the heirs of the 4 major clans accompanying her, even if something happened, the 4 major clans would have their own ways of finding out immediately. For chasing one. He wondered if there would be a son-in-law that Nongzhu fancied among them. If Old Man Bai's descendants chased after Nongzhu's daughter, what would happen to their seniority? Would Nongzhu have to follow the 4 major clans and address Old Man Bai as her ancestor? Xianxia couldn't help but laugh at the thought of what might happen. He shook his head and went downstairs again. He ordered free food and drinks. Leaning against the window, he looked at the rising lights in the market and drank alone. Now that he had calmed down, he seemed to realize that something was missing. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that the stubborn girl was missing by his side. Bang! There was an explosion in the distant sky. Xianxia, who was a little absent-minded, suddenly became alert. He looked back and was slightly stunned. A splendid firework bloomed in the night sky with enchanting colors. Then a few more slowly rose and exploded in the sky one by one. Someone actually set off secular fireworks in the 100 Flowers Valley? What a refined mood. Xianxia shook his head and smiled. He raised his glass and drank a little, enjoying the fireworks with the wine. The crescent moon that appeared behind the fireworks was particularly lonely. There was a river below the fireworks. The heirs of the 4 major clans kept taking out fireworks from their storage bags and placed them on the riverbank. Ziyi held a burning incense that flickered in her hand. She lit up a bunch of colorful flames and couldn't hide the excitement on her face. The brilliance of the sky and the brilliance of the reflection on the river echoed from afar. It was indeed a romantic scene under the night sky. These fireworks were bought by the 4 of them when they went to the secular world for fun. They were the kind of one-eyed salutes that could climb very high after being set off. They didn't know how many they bought, but the 4 of them kept placing them on the ground for Ziyi to light. Many people in the 100 Flowers Valley were attracted by the fireworks. Gradually, many people gathered to watch from afar. Now that the war in the cultivation world had just begun, the atmosphere was tense. The sudden sight of this made people feel much more relaxed. "Miss Ziyi, try this one." Bai Zitsong held a firework that was as thick as a thigh and placed it on the ground. Ziyi took a new incense stick that Wu Liqing had lit up. She excitedly walked over and lit the fuse at the base. Bang! Even the ground slightly trembled. A bowl-sized ball of light rushed out and shot straight into the sky. Bang! It exploded and the gorgeous colors spread across the sky. The expressions of the people below were also clearly illuminated. So it's these guys. After Yu Qianzhou ate and drank to his heart's content, he saw that the fireworks were still going off. He put his hands behind his back and came to see who had nothing better to do after eating. He didn't expect to see the 4 young masters sucking up to Ziyi. So beautiful. A woman murmured from the side. Yu Qianzhou turned his head and looked. Coincidentally, a firework exploded and light shot everywhere. The woman's face was right in front of his. When they saw each other clearly, they were both stunned. Chapter 405. Xianxia. Yu Qianzhou. Both of them were stunned. They didn't expect to meet under such circumstances. Then they looked at each other and smiled. An indescribable feeling lingered between the two of them. Yu Qianzhou smiled awkwardly. Back then, on supporting Xian Island, he was lonely, so he picked her up. His hands touched her all over, touching all the places that she shouldn't touch. Felt good. Then both of them left supporting Xian Island. When they met again, he purposely avoided her. So, although both of them were in the 100 Flowers Valley, they didn't see each other. Xianxia's faint smile was mixed with some bitterness. She could naturally feel that Yu Qianzhou was purposely avoiding her. Now that they met again, she wanted to ask why, but she didn't know how to ask. Bang! The fireworks exploded, releasing a gorgeous light. Both of them saw each other's faces clearly again. Not talking wasn't a solution. Yu Qianzhou touched his face and smiled awkwardly. Why are you here? I saw someone set off fireworks, so I came to take a look. What about you? Xianxia asked. I also came to take a look. Yu Qianzhou smiled. Their conversation was simple and empty. Then both of them fell into silence. They looked awkwardly at the place where the fireworks were set off. After a long time, Xianxia suddenly asked, Is the woman who set off the fireworks the lady in purple dress who was with you? Do you know her? Yu Qianzhou asked. I don't. Xianxia shook her head lightly. Who doesn't know Yu Qianzhou's name in the cultivation world? Who doesn't know that Yu Qianzhou has a lady in purple dress with unfathomable cultivation? You two are Dao companions? We're dual cultivation Dao companions? Yu Qianzhou was stunned and he hurriedly waved his hand and said, No, no. He thought in his heart. That little girl probably doesn't even know what it means to go to bed now, dual cultivation my ass. He pointed at Ziyi and the 4 young masters and said, Can't you see anything? When Xianxia heard this, she took a closer look and smiled. She could also tell that the 4 successors of the 4 great clans were pursuing Ziyi. If Ziyi was really Yu Qianzhou's Dao companion, how could he just stand there and do nothing? Turning her head, she smiled sweetly and said, That lady in purple is also a stunning beauty. She has been by your side for a long time. Could it be that you have never been moved? Why did you allow others to pursue her? Yu Qianzhou smiled bitterly and shook his head. He thought to himself, That girl's father is not easy to deal with. It's better not to touch him. Besides, I already have a few good women. I'm already satisfied. Xianxia looked at him in a daze. The little disciple of supporting Immortals Island back then had already risen to fame. Could he continue his fate? Recalling the past, he couldn't help but ask, You owe me something. Do you still remember? Yu Qianzhou was stunned. What do I owe you? It seems like you have forgotten. Xianxia looked at the sky and waited for a firework to explode. She smiled bitterly and said, You promised to compose a song for me. If you really forgot, then forget it. Yu Qianzhou was speechless. Thinking about it carefully, he did casually promise her back then. He almost forgot about it. He didn't expect her to remember it. Dong 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 dong. While the two of them were speechless, suddenly, a melodious sound of a zither could be heard. Even the bang-bang of the fireworks couldn't cover its penetrative power. It clearly spread across the wilderness. It was obvious that the person who played the zither injected true essence into it. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other. They were just talking about a song and someone was playing the zither. Wasn't it too much of a coincidence? The people who were watching the fireworks looked towards the source of the sound. On the other side of the river, under the cold moon and the brilliant fireworks, there was a beautiful woman in a red dress sitting on a giant rock that had been standing for God knows how many years. Her face was covered by a red veil, and there was a zither on her crossed legs. Her fingers were as delicate as jade, and the melodious sound of the zither could be heard. Although they couldn't see her face, judging from her demeanor, she must be an enchanting beauty. The people whispered to each other, not knowing where this mysterious woman came from. The few people who were setting off the fireworks stopped. The night sky returned to normal, and only the sound of the zither could be heard. Ziyi looked at Bai Zitsong and the other three people with a questioning gaze. The latter shook their heads, indicating that they didn't know who it was. I am a fox that has been cultivating for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of cultivation, 1,000 years of loneliness. In the dead of night, can anyone hear me crying? In the dim light, can anyone see me dancing? The woman plucked the strings of the zither and hummed a rhythm. Her voice was faint and moving, and it echoed across the wilderness. Isn't this the song you composed? Xianxia turned her head and asked. Oh. I think it is, Yu Qianqiu stuttered. His facial expression kept twitching. It was so interesting. The others couldn't tell who the woman was, but he could. Even if he couldn't see her, he could tell from the voice. Who else could it be other than his master's wife, the enchantress of 100 charms? He just didn't know why she came here to play the zither in the middle of the night. Ziyi was suspicious when she saw the woman, but when she heard the song, she couldn't hide the surprise on her face. Although she didn't know much about the world, Nongzhu was a master of music. Having been influenced for so many years, she could naturally tell the good from the bad. It was the first time for her to hear such a melodious and popular song. After singing a few lines, a sad story appeared in front of her. Isn't this song from Ong Kwangsung, White Fox? Bai Zitsong looked at the woman under the moonlight and frowned. Ziyi asked, You mean the song is called White Fox? I don't know, but many people say so. Bai Zitsong smiled. Ziyi nodded and said, It's a very appropriate song name. Miss Ziyi, you probably don't know yet. It's said that this song was composed by Mr. Yu. Tanned Face smiled and said, You mean Yu Qianqiu? He can compose music? How is that possible? Ziyi was shocked. Then she shook her head and denied the rumor. Ever since she had known Yu Qianqiu, she had never seen that he had any talent in this area. It should be said that the man's words and actions were not even close to his ability to compose music. If he had half the demeanor of his master, she might have believed it. In short, it was impossible. In fact, this rumor had been around for a long time. But no one could imagine that Yu Qianqiu, who was known as a scum and a madman, could compose music and play the zither. Wu Liqing thought about it and couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, It's just a rumor after all. Rumors may not be true. I also don't think Mr. Yu would do it. There's also a song called Dream of Mandarin Ducks and Butterflies. It's also a rare classic. It's said that it was composed by Mr. Yu. If it was really composed by Mr. Yu, then, hee. Before Jianghu finished his sentence, he and the others started laughing. They all thought it was a joke. Dream of Mandarin Ducks and Butterflies? Is it better than White Fox? Do you know how to sing it? Ziyi asked curiously. Just as she asked, the woman on the other side of the river finished her song. The melody of the zither changed. After the first song, another style of song was sung. Yesterday was like the flowing water in the east, far away from me. Today my heart is in chaos, so much worry. Maybe it was because the song was really good. There were many fireflies flying around her in the silent night. They danced around her, adding to the beauty of the song. Jianghu smiled and said, Miss Ziyi, didn't you want to listen to Dream of Mandarin Ducks and Butterflies? Here it is. Ziyi heard him and opened her red lips slightly. Her eyes looked at the other side of the river. She was completely immersed in the melancholy melody and forgot to reply. The enchantress of 100 charms had extraordinary attainments in music. She played the rhythm of the song in a captivating manner. The listeners on the other side of the river were listening to her singing quietly. Yu Qianqiu's eyes kept darting around. He didn't know what she was trying to do by doing this. Suddenly, his eyes met with the enchantress of 100 charms, and a trace of slyness flashed across the latter's eyes. Yu Qianqiu felt that something was wrong. She might be targeting him, but he did not know what she was trying to do. When the song ended, the crowd heaved a sigh of relief. Suddenly the melody changed again. Although it was not as familiar as the previous two songs, the helpless feelings that came from the other side of the river were enough to stir people's hearts. Under the moonlight, the red lips moved and sang, Don't talk about the past. Life is full of ups and downs. Even if you can't erase your memories, love and hate are still in your heart. If you really want to cut off the past and let tomorrow continue, you don't have to pester me anymore. The enchantress of 100 charms sang this song with great emotion. It was the first time the crowd heard it and they were amazed. Yu Qianqiu unconsciously crossed his arms in front of his chest. He squinted his eyes and mumbled in his heart, What is she doing? Is she trying to hold a concert? He turned his head to look at Xianxia. Seeing her infatuated face, Yu Qianqiu opened his mouth but he was speechless. He only felt goosebumps all over his body. Ziyi's eyes widened. She subconsciously pulled Bai Zitsong and asked, "What's the name of this song?" Bai Zitsong came back to his senses. He shook his head and said, "It sounds good, but I've never heard it before. I don't know what it's called. Maybe I'm ignorant. Do you guys know?" He asked Wu Liqing and the other two. The three of them thought hard and shook their heads, indicating that they didn't know. Ziyi was a little disappointed. She wanted to ask the other side of the river, but she was afraid that she would disturb the other party's performance. She could only listen to the other side of the river quietly until the song ended. After the song ended, the Enchantress of 100 Charms pressed her hands on the strings to stop the lingering sound. She stood on the huge rock with the guqin in her arms. Under the moonlight, even the red veil could not hide her graceful figure. One of her hands gently pulled down the veil that covered half of her face. Her charming face was finally revealed in front of everyone. Those who knew her exclaimed, "The Enchantress of Enchanted Palace." So it's her. I was wondering why she looked so familiar. After the Enchantress of Enchanted Palace was wiped out, didn't she go into hiding? Why is she here to play the guqin? The crowd whispered to each other in surprise. The Enchantress of 100 Charms looked around and giggled. "I've been hiding for so many years. I didn't expect so many people to recognize me. How rare." Xianxia was slightly stunned. She had revealed her identity again. It seemed that she wanted to come out openly. At this moment, a burst of laughter came from behind him. I was wondering who was in the mood. So it's Palace Master Yi. Xianxia turned around and saw a group of people standing behind him. They were probably attracted by the sound of the guqin. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan stood side by side. The one who laughed was Qiu Wuyuan. He flashed over the crowd and landed in front of the huge rock across the river. So it's the leader of 10,000 demons, Elder Qiu. The Enchantress of 100 Charms glanced at him. Her expression was indifferent and a little rude. The enchantment palace was destroyed, but the leader of 10,000 demons did not help. She was a little unhappy. Qiu Wuyuan smiled awkwardly. "Palace Master Yi, I haven't seen you for many years. I didn't expect you to be as powerful as ever. The war of the cultivation world has just begun and we need a master like you to join us." Xianxia nodded secretly. It was the first time he heard that the Enchantress of 100 Charms' surname was Yi. The enchantment palace is gone. What does the war of the cultivation world have to do with me? I don't want to participate in the war. I'm only here to visit a friend. The Enchantress of 100 Charms bluntly refused and turned to look at Xianxia. She resumed her charming smile and said, "I have lived in seclusion for many years and am fond of music. By chance, I ran into the composer of the White Fox and the Mandarin Duck and Butterfly Dream, so I asked him for a song. Just now, I played and sang Love Has Become a Thing of the Past. Recently, I suddenly heard that Sir appeared in 100 Flowers Valley again, so I came to pay a visit, hoping to learn another song." Everyone followed her gaze. It was none other than Xianxia, whose expression was twitching. They were in an uproar. Could it be that he really composed those songs? Ziyi, Bai Zitsong and the others turned around. They were still in disbelief when they saw it was Xianxia. Zixia believed it without a doubt because she had seen it with her own eyes. She asked in a low voice, "The song just now was called Love Is Past? Damn it. What was this woman trying to do?" Xianxia looked around and smiled at the Enchantress of 100 Charms. "Palace Master Yi, you're being too polite. It's just a joke. It's not worth asking for advice. I've come all the way here. Are you going to let me go home disappointed?" The Enchantress of 100 Charms laughed. Although it was a joke, Xianxia felt that there was a hint of threat in it, which made him very unhappy. He looked at Zixia beside him and thought to himself, "Forget it. I'll just take it as fulfilling my promise to her." He threw out a green flying sword and flew to the Enchantress of 100 Charms. He glared at her. The Enchantress of 100 Charms did not mind. She smiled charmingly and pushed the zither in her hand to him. She then gave way to him and floated to the bottom of the giant rock. Xianxia held the zither with one hand and looked at Zixia. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Back then, I promised someone that I would compose a song for her. Unfortunately, I've never fulfilled my promise. I'm ashamed that she asked me about it today. I'll just borrow your zither to fulfill my promise." He sat down with his legs crossed. He closed his eyes and pondered for a while. He randomly picked a song from his memory and brewed it. When he opened his eyes, his fingers were already playing the zither skillfully. The clear and refreshing sound of the zither weaved out a beautiful melody, and the people on the other side of the river were immediately stunned. Qiu Weiyuan stared at the fingers that were playing the zither. He realized that it was not an act. His mouth turned into a circle. Bai Zizong and the other three looked at each other. They said that it was impossible just now, but it became a reality in the blink of an eye. Zi's mouth was opened so wide that an egg could be stuffed in it. It was unbelievable. Chapter 406. The temptress turned to the other side of the river, trying to find the person Yu Qianqiu promised, but it was hard to confirm. Others might not understand, but Yan Zixia did. The person Yu Qianqiu was talking about was her. Her beautiful eyes were slightly watery, but fortunately, it was hard for others to see it due to the dim moonlight. The melody was clear, and under the moonlight, it gave off a free and easy feeling. Yu Qianqiu looked around with a calm smile on his face and echoed the melody. The world of mortals is funny, infatuation is the most boring, arrogance is good. This life is not over, but the heart has no worries, I just want to be free for the rest of my life. Smile to people when awake, forget everything in dreams, sigh that the sky darkens too early. The next life is unpredictable, love and hate are written off, I sing to whine, I only want to be happy until I grow old. The surprise on everyone's faces had turned into an attentive expression. The troubles in their hearts seemed to have dissipated along with the song. They were all immersed in it, and some even swayed left and right involuntarily with the melody. Was this the guy who was filthy and immoral? This guy actually had this side to him. Qiu Weiyuan, who was below, was petrified on the spot with a blank face. Ziyi, who was on the other side, was completely dumbfounded. Elder Bai's disciple was indeed not an ordinary person. The world of mortals is funny, infatuation is the most boring. Are you talking to me, comforting me? So you have always known my heart. Yan Zixia mumbled as if she was dreaming. The moonlight was dim, the river was flowing, the fireflies were dancing, and the breeze was cool. As he sang and sang, Yu Qianqiu also entered the state of mind. His expression was transcendent, and there was a faint smile on his face as he looked at the fireflies resting on his shoulder. They were singing to their heart's content under the moonlight. He said, "No matter how cold the wind is, I don't want to escape. No matter how beautiful the flowers are, I don't want them. The higher the sky, the narrower the heart. No matter how much karma there is, I get drunk alone. I cry today, I laugh tomorrow, I don't expect anyone to understand, I'm full of pride. The song is singing, the dance is dancing, the night is long, and the dawn is looking for happiness." After repeating the catchy melody a few times, everyone had already memorized it. Many people were humming it softly, realizing that this song could relieve their worries. Music will eventually come to an end, and beauty cannot be preserved forever. The music slowly came to an end. Everyone was still immersed in the joy. Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly. It seemed that the performance was quite effective. Suddenly, he discovered that the Enchantress of 100 Charms was looking at him with a smile, full of ill intentions. He could not help but frown. Without saying a word, he picked up the zither on his knee and tossed it back to the other party. The Enchantress of Allure caught the zither that was rolling over and gently held it in her arms. Her face was filled with an enchanting smile as she let out a burst of bell-like giggles. She seemed to be very proud, which woke everyone up with a start. When everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu again, their gazes were filled with deep veneration. To be able to improvise such a beautiful and classic song, how many people in the world could do it? He was simply a heaven-sent genius. Qiu Weiyuan smacked his lips and swallowed his saliva. He did not understand music, but he could intuitively tell that it was beautiful. Even a boorish person like him wanted to let go of everything and have a good time after listening to it. It was obvious that this song was extraordinary. TSK. Looking at Yu Qianqiu, he shook his head and exclaimed. This guy was not only good at acting shamelessly and fighting, but he could also play such a gentle song. It was really surprising. What a talent. What a gentle scum. Yu Qianqiu stood up and was about to leave when the Enchantress of 100 Charms asked with a smile, "Mister, are you going to leave like this? A good song needs a good name. Since Mister has left the song, you should at least tell us the name of the song." Everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu and nodded slightly. This thing was not a treasure. It was not like he could eat it if he kept it in his mouth. Without hesitation, Yu Qianqiu said, "Let's call it Xiaohongqian." Xiaohongqian? That Xiaohongqian from Hongqian is so funny? Good name. The Enchantress of 100 Charms' eyes lit up and nodded in praise. Everyone else also whispered to each other. Yu Qianqiu took out a green flying sword from his long sleeve and stepped on it. The Enchantress of 100 Charms carried her zither and followed behind him. Yu Qianzhou looked back and immediately stopped in the air. The Enchantress of 100 Charms also stopped with a smile. Palace Lord Yi, why are you following me? Yu Qianzhou was surprised. The Enchantress of 100 Charms plucked the zither in her arms with a few fingers. After a few tinkles, she smiled and said, "Of course, to go back with Mr. and continue to learn from you." "Oh, it's too late. It's not convenient. Let's talk about it another day." Yu Qianzhou looked at the people below and said with a twitching face. The Enchantress of 100 Charms giggled and said, "Late? It's better if it's late. No one will disturb us in the dead of night. It's a good time to learn from you." Yu Qianzhou's body swayed and he almost fell off the sword. He looked at her translucent clothes and thought, "Masteress, you're playing with me? There are so many people below and you dare to say such obscure words. What will others think if you go back with me dressed like this?" Everyone below looked at each other in dismay. The Enchantress of 100 Charms was famous for her charm. Although no one had seen her affairs with their own eyes, her dissolute reputation had long been widely known in the cultivation world. Now this scum was suitable for a slut. Everyone thought so. Fortunately, Yu Qianzhou didn't know what the people below were thinking. Otherwise, he would have to summon the special forces and start a massacre. "Brat, you destroyed my pavilion. I haven't settled the score with you yet, and you refused to show me." The Enchantress of 100 Charms was smiling on the surface, but she was secretly threatening him with telepathy. Yu Qianzhou's face froze. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. His cultivation was not high enough, so he couldn't explain with telepathy. The two of them were in a stalemate in the air for a while. In the end, Yu Qianzhou gave way and flew into the 100 Flowers Valley dejectedly. The Enchantress of 100 Charms giggled and followed him. The next life is unpredictable. Love and hate are written off. Is this what you want to tell me? Xianxia, who was below, turned around in a daze and was still murmuring. Once this woman started to let her imagination run wild, anything could fit the situation. Even 10 bulls couldn't pull her back. No, 10,000 bulls couldn't pull her back. After watching the show, the crowd left happily. They couldn't help but sigh. They didn't expect Yu Qianzhou to have such a trick up his sleeve. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Miss Zi. Wu Liqing passed her another incense stick and said, "There are still many fireworks left. Let's continue." Yes, let's continue." Bai Zizong and the other two agreed. They immediately took out fireworks from their storage pouches and started to place them on the ground. Zi took the incense stick and lit a fuse. She watched as a ray of light shot into the sky and exploded. Although the colors were still beautiful, she didn't have the mood to start. Her lips were slightly pouting, showing a lack of interest. She looked at the 4 men who were placing the fireworks. She couldn't help but compare them with Yu Qianzhou. Then she frowned and thought, as expected of the disciples of the aristocratic families. They only know how to play all day and follow behind women. What a loser. It seems that when I was with him, I was always behind him. He was busy all day and I rarely saw him stop. I was fine with him. Why would I hang out with these vulgar people and play with children's things? So vulgar. Damn it. I've been with him for so long. He never told me that he knows how to play the guqin and compose music. Liar. Ziyi's pretty face turned cold. She threw the incense stick on the ground and turned to leave. "Miss Ziyi, where are you going? There are many fireworks here." Bai Zizong shouted. The other 3 were stunned. "You guys play. I'm going back," Ziyi said without turning her head. "We'll go with you." The 4 of them said in unison. Ziyi's face darkened. She turned around and shouted, "Don't follow me." Then she left quickly. The 4 of them watched her figure disappear under the moonlight. When they came back to their senses, they couldn't help but look at each other. They didn't know why Ziyi suddenly lost her temper. They didn't know what Ziyi was thinking. If they knew, they would definitely shout that they were innocent. It's not that you wanted to play. Who would play with a cultivator? We're playing with you, but you're saying that we're vulgar. What happened? Did someone make her angry? Tan Fei was shocked. Wu Liqing shook his head. Who dared to make her angry? Maybe she's tired of playing with them. Sigh. A woman's heart is so hard to understand. Beautiful women are even more so. Looks like we need to find something new. Bai Zizong nodded in agreement. Jingzhu pointed at the fireworks on the ground. What about these? I still have a lot in my storage bag. It's not a good thing to keep these things in my storage bag. They could turn into explosives if something goes wrong. What else can we do? She asked us to play, so we'll play. Who knows what she's thinking? This woman is like a kid. Maybe she'll come back when she's interested. Wu Liqing squatted on the ground and lit up a bunch. Whoosh, bang. The fireworks rose into the sky. The other three looked at each other and lit some incense as well. The four of them played until midnight. When they thought that Zi wouldn't come back, they were so angry that they poured the rest of the fireworks in their storage bags into the river. On the other side, Yu Qianqiu and 100 Charms Beauty had just arrived at 100 Flowers' house. When they heard the fireworks exploding again, they only looked back. After entering, Yu Qianqiu knocked on the counter and said, "Shopkeeper, prepare another empty room for me." Just as the shopkeeper nodded, 100 Charms Beauty smiled and said, "There's no need." Yu Qianqiu turned around happily and said, "Palace Master Yi, do you have something to do and have to leave? Do you want me to send you off?" He was really afraid of her. It would be great if he could send her off. Who knew that as soon as he finished speaking, the 100 Charm Enchantress would secretly stretch out a sharp index finger and directly poke his waist, causing him to grimace in pain. "What? Do you want to chase me away?" 100 Charms Beauty smiled and said. "No, you misunderstood." Yu Qianqiu clenched his teeth and said. 100 Charms Beauty looked up and nodded. "That's good. I have something to talk to you about. Bring me to your room." "Oh, that's not very convenient." Just as Yu Qianqiu opened his mouth, he felt another sharp pain on his waist. He didn't dare to say anything else and quickly went upstairs. 100 Charms Beauty nodded and smiled at the shopkeeper. Then she followed Yu Qianqiu. The shopkeeper felt his bones become lighter. Chapter 407. When he reached the door, Yu Qianqiu hesitated and didn't open the door. He kept looking at both ends of the corridor as if he was afraid of being seen. The Allure Beauty swayed her hips as she walked over and asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Yu Qianqiu shook his head. The Allure Beauty stared at the door and asked in confusion, "Then why don't you go in? Is there a woman hiding in there and you're afraid I'll find her?" She pushed the door open and walked in. She looked around the room, even under the bed, but she didn't find anything suspicious. When she turned around, she saw him still standing at the door as if there was a ghost inside and he didn't dare to come in. "Is this your room?" the 100 Charms Enchantress asked. Seeing him nod his head in agreement, she couldn't help but ask curiously, "Then why are you standing outside?" She walked to the door and dragged Yu Qianqiu into the room, closing the door behind her. Yu Qianqiu staggered and looked back. His heart was pounding. He quickly walked to the window and opened it. He looked outside and said to himself, "The room seems a little stuffy." He stayed by the window and didn't move. No matter how he looked at it, he felt like jumping out of the window to escape. The Allure Beauty was slightly stunned and immediately understood what was going on. This bad guy was afraid of being molested by her. She immediately laughed and said, "Yo! Look at you, are you afraid that I'll eat you?" Yu Qianqiu was a little embarrassed by her words. He thought to himself, "She's not afraid, so why should I be afraid?" He looked outside the window and closed it. He walked to the round table in the middle of the room and sat down. He smiled bitterly and said, "Master's wife, what are you playing at? I'm looking for a reason to look for you openly. I'll also help you make a name for yourself in the cultivation world. If you have any complaints, you can only blame yourself for not greeting your master's wife when you come out. You're looking down on me too much. Could it be that you want to dump me after using me?" the Allure Temptress said coquettishly. Then she walked in front of him and put one hand on his shoulder. She leaned over and whispered in his ear, "What are you playing at this time? You're not going to play around and leave this time, are you?" Why does it sound so ambiguous? Yu Qianqiu felt the delicate body leaning against his back and was truly speechless. What the hell was going on? He said helplessly, "Master's wife, just say it. What do you want from me?" "Haven't I said it already? Of course I'm here to ask you, Mr. Yu Qianqiu." "Master's wife, don't joke around." After saying that, Yu Qianqiu wanted to stand up. However, a pair of slender hands pressed him back down. The Enchantress of Allure pinched his shoulders with just the right amount of strength, and said in a sorrowful voice, "My magical fantasy palace no longer exists and now I'm all alone. If you think my craftsmanship is passable, then please accept me as a poor person. I'm willing to stay by your side and serve you." What kind of nonsense is this? Yu Qianqiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked back and said, "Master's wife, please stop. I really don't have the fortune to enjoy it. If you need my help, just say it." At this time, footsteps stopped outside the door. The two of them stopped talking and laughed. Then there was a knock on the door. Zi shouted, "Yu Qianqiu." The fireworks were still going off. Why did this girl come back? Yu Qianzhou shrugged his shoulders and said, "Come in." However, the Enchantress of 100 Charms' hands refused to leave his shoulders. Instead, she began to knead more and more seriously, as if she was a servant that was being ordered around. Ziyi pushed open the door and entered. When she saw this scene, she was momentarily stunned. She turned around and closed the door. She directly sat in front of Yu Qianzhou and glared at the 100 Charms beauty who was behind him, massaging his shoulders. In terms of appearance, Ziyi was better than the Allure beauty. However, in terms of femininity, Ziyi was far from it. The Allure beauty's frown and movement were well trained. Even women would be moved by her, let alone men. Ziyi was like a green apple. It was a little bitter. The Allure beauty was like a red strawberry. It was as if one bite would fill one's mouth with juice. Ziyi didn't care about these things. However, it was a woman's nature to love beauty. It was inevitable that they would compare each other. However, the Allure beauty's unique charm was unparalleled. It made her feel inferior. Looking at the other party's graceful figure that was faintly discernible under the red muslin and the exposed snow-white chest, Ziyi subconsciously glanced at her own chest that was tightly wrapped. It didn't seem to be as perky as the other parties. "Ma. Palace Lord Yi, don't bother." Yu Qianzhou shrugged his shoulders and said awkwardly. The Allure beauty giggled and said, "It's okay. I'm not afraid of trouble." She rubbed harder. Ziyi couldn't tell what was in her eyes. In short, it was very complicated. "Ziyi, weren't you going to set off fireworks? Why did you come back?" Yu Qianzhou asked with a bitter face. "Liar." Ziyi didn't answer his question. She looked angry. Yu Qianzhou and the Allure beauty were stunned at the same time. The latter asked Yu Qianzhou, "What did you lie to her about?" "What's there to lie to?" Yu Qianzhou rolled his eyes. His body suddenly emitted a scorching heat. After forcing the Allure beauty away, he stood up and asked Ziyi, "What's wrong with you? Who lied to you? Could it be those 4 guys?" He looked her up and down. He thought, "Oh my God, did she lose her chastity? Who dared to force themselves on Nongzhu's daughter? No, to lie to her? They must be tired of living. It doesn't look like it. It's you, you big liar." Ziyi stood up and shouted. She herself didn't know what was going on, but from the moment she came in and saw Yu Qianzhou and that scantily clad woman acting very intimately together, an indescribable fire surged in her heart. She couldn't explain why. The Allure beauty looked at Yu Qianzhou with a smile. Her expression seemed to say, "I knew you were not a good person." Yu Qianzhou was stunned. "Me? What did I lie to you about?" He felt a little guilty. Did she know that I used her to make money? "You can play the zither and compose music, but you never told me. If you aren't a liar, then what are you?" Ziyi shouted. When the Allure beauty heard this, the smile on her face froze. It was difficult for her to recover. Her mind was blank. Oh my God. Is this the legendary Ziyi who scared off 7 experts at the end of the Heavens test stage? Yu Qianzhou was also stunned. He asked suspiciously, "That's it? If I don't tell you, then I'm a liar? Then why should I tell you?" Ziyi paused. It seemed that she couldn't think of a better reason. However, the unknown fire in her hadn't subsided. She shouted in a far-fetched manner, "If you don't tell me, then you're a liar." Fine, fine, fine. I'm a liar. Are you satisfied now?" Yu Qianzhou was too lazy to argue with her. If he didn't finish playing with a stubborn person, then what was the difference between him and an idiot? He might as well admit that he was wrong. Who asked him to be so kind-hearted? Ziyi was no match for him. She was so angry that she couldn't say anything. Thus, she pointed the spearhead at the Allure beauty and asked, "What is she doing here?" This girl ate the wrong medicine today. 4 handsome men didn't make you happy?" Yu Qianzhou looked at her from head to toe. "From today onwards I will follow Mr. and serve him." The Allure beauty explained on her behalf. She finally understood that although Ziyi's cultivation was high, her mind wasn't mature yet. Yu Qianzhou was stunned. However, the Allure beauty transmitted her voice to him. "I'm quite well informed. With me by your side you might be useful in the future. You still want someone to serve you?" Ziyi glared at him and said, I'm tired. I'm going to sleep." Yu Qianzhou felt a headache coming on from these 2 women. He let out a roar and walked over to the bed. He threw himself onto the bed and closed his eyes. He didn't care about anything else and just let them be. Ziyi's chest was rising and falling rapidly. She followed the bed and shouted, "Yu Qianzhou, you still haven't answered my question. Don't sleep." It was the first time she was ignored like this since she came from the South Sea. Even her master had never treated her like this. Let's talk tomorrow. I don't want to talk anymore today. Xianxia closed his eyes and waved his hand weakly. The allure beauty walked over with a smile. She bent down and picked up Xianxia's leg. Xianxia suddenly propped himself up. He saw that she was taking off his shoes. She really did look like she was serving someone. What was this woman trying to do? Xianxia was speechless. He just closed his eyes and let her do whatever she wanted. The allure beauty nodded to Ziyi with a faint smile. She then took off her little red shoes and went onto the bed with her bare feet. Under Ziyi's dumbfounded expression, she sat beside Xianxia. She picked up one of his legs and placed it on her thigh. Then she started to knead it bit by bit. Xianxia moaned in comfort. He opened his eyes a little and quickly closed them again. His legs were full of elasticity and plump, which really made his imagination run wild. His heart was beating fast. Oh my God! How could I ask my master's wife to knead my legs? But I don't know anything. Ziyi was speechless. She stood aside and watched for a long time. Suddenly she heard Xianxia snoring on the bed. His face had an unusually comfortable expression. She really wanted to go over and kick him. Seeing how virtuous the allure beauty was, she bit her red lips and resisted the urge. Then she quietly retreated to the table and sat down. Late at night, the sound of fireworks outside stopped. The whole 100 Flowers Valley was unusually quiet. There was only the sound of Xianxia's even snoring in the room. Just like that, one of them kneaded his legs for the whole night, and the other sat aside and watched for the whole night. Ziyi's expression kept changing. No one knew what she was thinking. The next day Xianxia, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly felt a sharp pain coming from his waist. He sat up with an ah sound. He saw the allure beauty looking at him with a smile. Obviously she was the culprit. Ziyi, who was standing by the window, heard the scream and turned around. Her face had already recovered its calmness. Chapter 408. The temptress got off the bed first. The white and tender skin under the red gauze was really pleasing to the eyes. Ziyi's eyes also flashed a trace of amazement. Being so close to her, she could see the graceful figure of the temptress from top to bottom. It was an irresistible temptation for both men and women. Xianxia glanced at the delicate body that left his side. He inhaled the lingering fragrance of the temptress and smacked his lips secretly. What a pity. Last night, I wanted to close my eyes and enjoy this kind of intimate contact slowly. How could I fall asleep in a daze? It's so strange. He couldn't figure it out and got off the bed. He stretched himself and felt comfortable and refreshed. He found that he had never had such a good sleep. He couldn't help but look at the temptress in surprise again. It might have something to do with her massage. Otherwise, I wouldn't have fallen asleep in front of such a beauty. At least, I wouldn't have fallen asleep so quickly. The air in the new morning couldn't dilute the abnormal atmosphere in the room. Xianxia looked at Ziyi, who didn't speak. Ziyi looked at the temptress, who was playing coquettishly by the window. It seemed that Ziyi paid special attention to every move of the temptress. She seemed to be observing and learning carefully. Really? Xianxia was slightly stunned. As the saying went, it was easy to learn bad things but hard to learn good ones. This thing couldn't be learned casually. If Ziyi with the charm of the temptress returned to the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, Nongzhu would definitely come to see him with a butcher's knife. Go down and eat something. Xianxia opened the door and walked out. The temptress touched her hair, nodded and smiled at Ziyi and then followed him out. Ziyi followed her. Looking at the temptress's graceful body swaying with charm, and then looking at herself, she slightly pouted and seemed to be a little disappointed. When the customers in the 100 Flower House saw the three people coming down from upstairs, almost all of their gazes were focused on the graceful enchantress. She walked down leisurely like a lotus, and her every frown and movement was infinitely charming, attracting everyone's gazes. Ziyi also looked at her with a trace of envy. Xianxia looked around and bitterly smiled. He envied everyone else for being able to look at the beauties without any restraints. However, he had many misgivings and did not dare to do so. He didn't know that God was playing a joke on him. He sent two beauties to his side but he couldn't eat them. How depressing. What he didn't know was that everyone was envious of him. They envied him for being able to take on two people at once. One was the famous enchantress of 100 Charms, and the other was the rarely seen purple dress. Both were stunning beauties. Just as the three of them found a seat by the window and sat down, they saw footsteps outside. Many people were running towards the back of the mountain, and there were even people flying across the sky on swords. Yu Qianqiu looked around and frowned slightly. The back mountain was where the 100-Flower Palace was. Could something have happened to the 100-Flower Palace? Temptress Yu Qian Mountain yelled. Ingli Temptress he to say. To the Temptress and said. But. Damn it. I gave you face but you don't want it. Yu Qianqiu was immediately infuriated. Coincidentally, another person ran over. Without saying a word, he kicked out and sent that person flying. Temptress and Ziyi looked at each other. Yu Qianqiu walked over and grabbed the person who was groaning in pain. He asked, "Do you know me?" The man slowly came back to his senses and was about to flip out, but after he saw clearly who it was, he repeatedly nodded in panic and said, I know. Yu Qianqiu pulled his lapel and shouted in a deep voice, "What are you panicking for? What happened?" "I don't know. I heard that Yan Bugui came back with his people. They are in a stalemate outside the 100 Flowers Valley. The Cultivation Alliance is gathering all the disciples in the 100 Flowers Valley." That person said with fear. "Why did this guy come back?" Yu Qianqiu frowned and let go of him. That person ran away. On a gentle slope in the back of the mountain, the 100 Flowers Palace was located. Outside was a sea of flowers. It was supposed to be a place where hundreds of flowers were blooming. But now it was ruined by a group of people who didn't follow the rules. This was the second time. Dongfang Chang'eo looked serious. He held his spear and guarded outside the 100 Flowers Palace. The Cultivation Alliance didn't expect that Yan Bugui would take his people to the 100 Flowers Valley when the war had already begun. This was a terrible thing. Most of the masters of the Cultivation Alliance had been transferred away. The rest were mostly second-rate masters of the various sections. Dongfang Chang'eo and Qiu Wuyuan were left to take charge of the affairs of the righteous and demon sects. Their cultivations were higher. On Yan Bugui's side, it was basically the same group of people as last time. There were more than 50 people, and all of them were above the tribulation passing stage. What was more terrifying was that there were 2 masters at the end of the tribulation passing stage. Although the Cultivation Alliance had a lot of people, they were no match for the other side. Although there were some masters in the 100 Flowers Palace, they were originally Yan Bugui's subordinates. It was good that they didn't go with him. How many people dared to attack him? At this time, Qiu Wuyuan was blocking in front of Yan Bugui and begging. Yan Bugui probably gave him some face. Otherwise he would have rushed in. Now no one could stop him. Dongfang Chang'eo looked around with a cold face. He felt that something was missing. Xionghui behind him asked nervously, "Elder Dongfang, doesn't Yu Qianqiu still have a group of people under him? Do you want me to call them over?" That's right. Yu Qianqiu himself was an expert. Not to mention, Ziyi and 100 Charms Enchantress were by his side. Although those loose cultivators were useless, it was always better to have more people. There was also a tribulation passing stage among them, right? Dongfang Chang'eo's eyes lit up. No wonder he felt that something was missing. He nodded and allowed Xionghui to leave. At this time he couldn't help but feel a little emotional. That little disciple of his that he wouldn't even look at in the eye had become quite important now. In fact, Xionghui's trip was in vain. On a mountain not far from here, behind a few big trees, Yu Qianqiu and the 2 girls were watching the situation. Yu Qianqiu frowned deeply. Normally, he did not want to interfere in this matter because Yan Bugui had many experts under him. Even if he called out the special forces, even if they won, the special forces would inevitably suffer heavy losses. After all, he had used his own spirit stones to build them up. Unless the benefits outweighed the disadvantages, it was better not to use them. But I also promised Ma Jiugu to protect Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter, so I'll just wait and see. If the mother and daughter are fine, I'll just stay put. I don't care about anything else. Qiu Wuyuan, get out of the way, don't force me to do it, Yan Bugui shouted. It seems like his patience was running out. Qiu Wuyuan smiled bitterly and said, "Eldest senior brother, why are you doing this? Why do you have to involve the mother and daughter in your matters? Besides, they are not willing to go with you. Could it be that you want to use force against them? Whether they want to or not, I'll have to ask them first. This is my family's business, get out of my way. Eldest brother, why are you so unwise? Are you really so sure that you will win? What if you fail? Why do you want them to follow you and risk the world's wrath? Who would dare to protect them?" Qiu Wuyuan tried his best to persuade him. The meaning behind his words was very clear. The mother and daughter pair are very safe here, it wouldn't be too late to take them away after you win. Yan Bugui coldly laughed. "I'm afraid that if you lose, the mother and daughter pair will become your hostages. You're trying so hard to stop us husband and wife from seeing each other, have you already put them under house arrest? The last part of his sentence was very serious. So this was the reason why he tried so hard to take Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter away. Xianhuan was a bit surprised. Eldest brother, what do you mean by that? Even if the entire Chinese cultivation world loses to you, who from the righteous and evil path would dare to take the mother and daughter pair as hostages? Not only our 10,000 demons wouldn't agree, even Fuxian Island wouldn't agree. That was then, this is now, in a moment of life and death, who would care about the mother and daughter pair? Yan Bugui spoke in a low voice. Eldest brother, what you're saying, could it be that you don't even trust Shifu? Could it be that Shifu would harm his own granddaughter? How could Guanding Hai of Fuxian Island easily take his granddaughter as a hostage? Xianhuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Yan Bugui's expression was uncertain. They'll be the safest if they follow me. As long as we're alive, they'll be safe. Otherwise, I won't be at ease no matter who has them. Xianhuan, seeing that we're fellow disciples, I've already done my best. Today, no matter what, I'll take them away with me. Don't force me to attack you, get out of my way. Without the decree of Shifu and sect master, I can't back down. Xianhuan slowly retreated. He knew that it was useless to continue persuading him. It seemed like he was ready to fight to the death. Yan Bugui's expression slowly turned ferocious. The conversation below was clearly heard by the three people behind the tree on the hilltop. Ziyi did not feel anything, but the allure demon's expression when she looked at Yan Bugui was a little moved. For a woman to be able to meet such a man, it was the dream of most women. She was also a woman who had such a dream. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his chin in thought. He didn't expect Yan Bugui to be such a family-oriented person. For his wife and daughter, he risked his life to enter the hinterland of China's cultivation world twice. Ma Jiugu's choice back then was not wrong. It seemed like Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter wouldn't be in any danger even if they left with him. The most important thing now was whether they were willing to go with him. If they were willing, that would be great, but if they weren't, conflict would be unavoidable. But they probably wouldn't go with him. Most women cared about their family, and Bai Hua Fairy was also a woman. How could she go against Fuxian Island, her family? That might not be the case. The battle between family and love was never set in stone. Young women were easily impulsive, while men were easily hesitant. Big men were often the opposite. At that time, men were the most likely to lose their rationality. They might even abandon their country for a smile. That's why in the past life, there was a saying that husband and wife were birds in the same forest. He hoped that his guess was wrong. That way he wouldn't have to work so hard. While Yu Qianqiu was thinking, his eyes suddenly lit up. From the Bai Hua Palace, Xianxia accompanied a dignified, elegant and exceptionally beautiful woman. The woman was so beautiful that people didn't dare to look at her directly. Her beauty was enough to cause the downfall of a city. Needless to say, this woman must be Bai Hua Fairy without a doubt. Yu Qianqiu sighed to himself. Women with the title of fairy in the cultivation world really couldn't be compared to ordinary beauties. The Jade Flower Fairy from before was like this, and now Bai Hua Fairy is also like this. What a pity. All the good cabbages are taken by pigs. Chapter 409. Seeing Bai Hua Fairy leisurely walking towards them as well as Yan Zixia next to her, Yan Wuchen excitedly walked forward calling out, "Madam, Zixia, stop!" Dongfang Chang'ao shouted and pointed the spear in his hand at Yan Wuchen, stopping him a few meters away. Dongfang Chang'ao, you dare to stop my family from reuniting? Today I will take your head to vent my anger. Yan Wuchen shouted. A green light shot out from his inventory bag with a xiu sound. It shot towards Dongfang Chang'ao like lightning. Dongfang Chang'ao's expression darkened, quickly raised his spear with both hands, but as soon as the tip of the spear was covered in golden light, a black light shot out even faster. With a ping sound, it knocked the green light away. One black and one green quickly returned. Dongfang Chang'ao held his spear to protect himself, glancing to his side, only to see a 1-meter-long crescent-shaped black magic weapon floating in front of Xianhuan, slowly rotating in the air. The curved blade had a black glow, spirit energy and killing intent coexisting. It was clearly a top-notch magic weapon. Yan Wugui caught the emerald flying sword, staring at the crescent-shaped magic weapon in front of Xianhuan, shouting in shock, "Black Moon Pagoda! Xianhuan, how did it end up in your hands?" When everyone saw Xianhuan's magic weapon, they all felt it was a bit strange, but when they heard Yan Wugui's words they were also shocked. A few hundred years ago, when the sect leader of 10,000 demons Yan Wuchen dominated the world, he had a high-tier magic weapon that struck fear into the hearts of the cultivators. Wasn't it called the Black Moon Pagoda? That was a peerless weapon at that time. Countless cultivators died under Yan Wuchen's Black Moon Pagoda. Ever since the leader of 10,000 demons retired, no one in the cultivation world has seen it again. Who would have thought that it would appear in Qiu Wuyuan's hands today? It was the first time for Dongfang Chang'eo to see any of the Chinese cultivators present. Dongfang Chang'eo looked at Qiu Wuyuan in surprise. Why did Yan Wuchen give him his personal treasure? Yan Bugui's expression was a little sluggish. Behind him, the old man in embroidered robes and the old man in linen robes also looked at each other. Although they were foreign cultivators, they had also heard of the fearsome name of the Black Moon Pagoda. Black Moon Pagoda? What kind of treasure is it? Yu Qianzhou looked at the gadget and turned to look at the enchantress of 100 charms. He was not very experienced and had never heard of such a thing. The allure beauty understood what he meant. Her expression turned solemn as she transmitted her voice. The Black Moon Pagoda is said to be the most lethal weapon of the Devil Dao. Its exact origin is unknown, but it seems that Yan Wuchen's father obtained it by chance. After it fell into Yan Wuchen's hands, it became infamous in the cultivation world. Back then there was a saying, under the pagoda, all are dead souls. It was said that no one who fought with Yan Wuchen could survive under his Black Moon Pagoda. This shows how powerful this treasure is. Tisk tsk. What a great treasure. Yu Qianzhou looked at Qiu Wuyuan again. He couldn't help but think of the day when Yan Wuchen didn't give him any face and slapped Qiu Wuyuan in front of everyone. At that time Qiu Wuyuan was as obedient as a child. Who would have thought that after suffering in front of everyone, he would receive such a great benefit? He then looked at the mother and daughter. Yan Zixia was biting her lips, staring at her father without saying a word. Bai Hua Fairy was even more indifferent as she looked at the distance. She didn't say a word. No one knew what she was thinking behind her calm face. This family is a bit interesting. They even dragged me into this. What the hell? Yu Qianzhou shook his head and smiled bitterly. Eldest brother, you didn't see wrong. This is Master's personal treasure, the Black Moon Pagoda. Qiu Wuyuan bowed sincerely towards the direction of the 10,000 demons. Wuyuan was adopted by Master when I was young. He personally taught me and treated me like his own son. I have always treated Master as a strict father. However, Wuyuan's talent is limited. Master has always favored me. First, he gave me the 4 generals of the demon family. Then he gave me his personal treasure, the Black Moon Pagoda. Qiu Wuyuan cannot repay Master's kindness even if he dies 10,000 times. Shut up. Yan Bugui shouted. His face was twisted. The Yan family's descendants have not died yet. This Black Moon Pagoda is not the treasure of the 10,000 demons. It is our Yan family's inherited treasure. How can we give it to an outsider? Give it back. He was really asking for it without any hesitation. Qiu Wuyuan shook his head. Eldest brother, Master already knew that you would say something like this. He told me to pass on a message to you when I see you again. Hearing that his father had something to tell him, Yan Bugui's eyes flickered. What message? This is what Master said. Eldest senior brother, listen carefully. Qiu Wuyuan smiled bitterly. He said slowly, I originally had a son and a foster son. My son betrayed the 10,000 demons. He abandoned the Yan family's painstaking efforts and gave the 4 generals of the demon family to my foster son. My son betrayed the cultivation world of wuxia and gave the Yan family's inherited treasure to my foster son. Unfilial son. Are you ashamed? Since you have the ability to betray us again and again, you should have the ability to fight for your own things. The Yan family's things do not belong to you. Don't ask for it shamelessly. Wuyuan, if he dares to ask for it from you, tell him everything I said. Let's see if he can face the ancestors of the Yan family. Yan Bugui felt like he was struck by lightning. He looked at Qiu Wuyuan with a pale face. He knew that Qiu Wuyuan would not lie in front of everyone. These words were undoubtedly from his father. Qiu Wuyuan said helplessly, Eldest brother, these are Master's original words. I didn't change a single word. Palace Master Yan, don't lose your composure. With Palace Master Yan's spirit, the 10,000 demons can only restrain you. How can you fulfill your ambitions? When you control the entire cultivation world of wuxia in the future, who would dare to say a word against you? The old man in brocade robe chuckled. He looked at the old man in linen robe beside him. This time, Yan Bugui returned to the 100 Flowers Valley. Although it was because he missed his wife and daughter, there were 2 people behind it. The headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance was empty. If they took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, even if they could not cause great losses to the cultivation world of wuxia, they could still greatly damage their morale and bring invisible benefits to the battle ahead. Otherwise, who would have nothing better to do and come all the way here to fight for his wife? They were not really his subordinates. The two of them looked at the increasing number of cultivators from wuxia and smiled. One disagreement would be the beginning of a massacre. The more casualties they caused, the more they could damage the morale of the Cultivation Alliance, and the more advantageous it would be for the battle ahead. Shut up. Xuanhuan shouted at the old man in brocade robe. My eldest brother's current situation was instigated by you too. You have the ambition of wolves and evil intentions. How dare you speak so arrogantly here? The old man in brocade robe raised his eyebrows and chuckled. I'm not your eldest brother. If you talk too much, you might lose the Black Moon Pagoda and your head. I'll give face to Palace Master Yen for now. I hope you won't say anything to anger me again. Otherwise don't blame me for being rude. How dare you? Dongfang Chang'ao shouted, holding his spear in one hand and standing next to Xuanhuan. The two of them exchanged glances. Although they've been enemies for many years, they have a tacit understanding. They've already given up on the righteous and demonic paths and are ready to fight side by side. Since you don't know what's good for you, then I won't be polite. The old man in brocade robe smirked. His hands came out from behind his back. He finally had an excuse to act. Chang'ao Wuyuan, stand down. A slightly dignified female voice was heard. Dongfang Chang'ao and Xuanhuan turned around, only to see the beautiful Baihua fairy was already walking towards them. The two of them were a bit surprised, exchanged glances, but didn't say anything. They only slightly bowed and stood on her left and right, on high alert to prevent any mishaps. Baihua fairy coldly stared at the old man in brocade robe, her tone frigid. Who are you, daring to provoke my Baihua palace? Are you trying to bully us mother and daughter because our Baihua palace doesn't have a man to lead it? Her man is right in front of her, yet she still dares to say such words. Xianxia, who was hiding in the shadows, shook his head. Not only is this woman beautiful, but she's also very smart. No wonder Baihua Palace isn't led by Yen Bugue, but by her. Her words are so sharp that they cut straight to the heart. Fuck. You want me to protect her? I think it's more like she's protecting me. Ma Jiugu is going in the opposite direction. Sure enough, when the old man saw Baihua Fairy's beauty, his eyes filled with admiration, was stunned, speechless. He immediately turned around to look at the pale-faced Yen Bugue. This woman's words are trying to drive a wedge between them. If I argue with her, Yen Bugue might turn against me. Although I'm not afraid of turning against him, now's not the time to do so. I still need his cooperation. The brocade-robed old man remembered that Man Hu and his fellow brothers must have taken some kind of wrong medicine. They're all dead set on following the Yen father and son. His expression couldn't help but twitch a bit. As he retreated, he said, Baihua Fairy truly lives up to her name. Dongfang Chang'ao and Xuanhuan exchanged glances. Even their combined efforts couldn't scare them away, but they were all taken care of by Baihua Fairy with just a few words. People really can't be compared to each other. Baihua Fairy's beautiful eyes looked around, scowling. My 100 Flowers Valley used to be a peaceful place, but now it's a mess. This palace doesn't welcome you. Get out of 100 Flowers Valley immediately. Saying so, she coldly turned around and walked away. Mu Shui, listen to me. Yen Bugue raised his hand and shouted. Dongfang Chang'ao and Xuanhuan immediately blocked his way. Xuanhuan shook his head. Eldest brother, sister-in-law has made it very clear, you should go back. Mu Shui. Xianxia muttered, then turned around to look at the 100 Charms beauty. The latter smiled and sent her voice. Baihua Fairy's real name is Guan Mu Shui. Xianxia nodded in understanding. The 100 Charms beauty sent her voice again. Now you know the benefits of having me by your side. Xianxia rolled his eyes. Who the hell knows what you're thinking? Hearing that, Baihua Fairy stopped and turned around to look at Yen Bugue. Ever since they came out, this was the first time she looked at him directly. Her face was expressionless. Listen to you? Listen to what you say. You've lied to me for so many years. Don't tell me you think it's not enough and want to keep lying? Am I Guan Mu Shui so easy to bully in your eyes? Forget it, I don't want to talk about the past anymore. I'm tired and I don't want to hear any more. If you still care about the past, then return peace to my 100 Flower Valley and leave with your people. After saying that, he turned around again. You're tuning in to this Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.